teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
This offseason, reports ESPN's Adam Schefter, that will make this one of the finest and deepest running back classes in the history of NFL free agency. The Bengals, the first team to use the franchise tag this offseason, officially placing it on receiver T. Higgins. Since being selected 33rd overall in the 2020 draft, he's hit the 1,000 receiving yard mark twice, and playing alongside Jamar Chase, Higgins has been one of the best #2 receivers in the NFL. Pro Football Hall of Famer and First Take co-host Shannon Sharp.
I think you owe it to this team, you owe it to your fan base to try to bring it back at least one more year before it becomes cost prohibitive, because Jamar Chase is eligible for a contract extension. So I think this was the only move that you could do, is that you franchise T. Higgins one more season, try to get this thing back. Hopefully Joe Burrow can stay healthy and make a Super Bowl run at this thing.
Bengals and Higgins have until July 15th to get a long-term extension done, or he plays this season on the $21.8 million receiver tag. NBA Warriors guard Chris Paul set to return from a fractured left hand tomorrow night against the Wizards. He's missed nearly 7 weeks.
Hey, it's your resident Super Bowl champ, Chris Candy. Coming up Tuesday as the NFL Combine gets going, I'll tell you what I'll be paying attention to the most this week. It's Unsportsmanlike, 6 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge Studios.
That's right.
And welcome in to a Monday edition of After Further Review. Musso filling in for Moscona. Grant Lanero and Paul O'Neill along for the ride as well. Glad to have you here on this Monday afternoon, and we have a lot to get to. You probably guessed it. There's going to be plenty of LSU baseball talk here today with me in the chair, and there will be. Got a little bit sprinkled in throughout every hour of the show. David Dellucci's going to join us at 5 o'clock as well to talk a little bit about, from a national scale in the SEC, because you had some very interesting results around the conference that I want to talk about, as well as his thoughts on some of the offensive struggles that LSU had. What does LSU kind of do on Friday night going forward after the first 2 starts from Thatcher Herd have maybe left a little bit to be desired? And we'll go through the weekend, Saturday and Sunday mainly, since we were on air Thursday and Friday for those games. We do have plenty of football to talk about as well, though, too. The NFL Combine gets underway this week. Split the week, right? What we all know the Combine to be starts a little bit later on Thursday with all the workouts and whatnot, but it's underway now, so we'll get a preview of that with Mike Triplett, talk some salary cap, as well as the Saints made a couple more moves over the weekend, and now looking forward, they have big questions on how they're going to totally get under the salary cap. Still about $40 million or so over for New Orleans, so we'll talk there. And then LSU basketball, they fell to Mississippi State. Glen West is going to be here to recap that and talk some hoop and look forward to the game against Georgia. So we have plenty to get to, and I'm fired up to get to all of it and fired up to have all of you with me here today. Let's start where we do every single day here. Of course, the opening segment's brought to you by Bud Light and Mockler Beverage, and we're going to start with LSU baseball. So, as I said, we were on air Thursday when LSU beat Northern Illinois 10-2, so we kind of talked about that game then. We were on air Friday when LSU lost to Stony Brook 5-2. We talked a little bit about that, just a brief thumbnail. Thatcher Herd goes 4 1/3, gives up 3 runs, leaves in a 1-run game. Little inconsistent, had 2 great innings in the first and the third. Struggled in the second, struggled in the fourth, came back and got one of the 2 hitters he was asked to face in the fifth. Got up to 95 pitches. Again, left in a 1-run ball game. LSU pitched well throughout. Stony Brook was able to put up 2 more in the 8th to kind of lengthen the lead a little bit. Just Griffin Herring was at the end of his rope there. and the bats were pretty quiet for LSU. They scored 2 runs on 6 hits, and they lose that ball game. So we will talk deeper on Thatcher Herd. I have that set for the bottom of next hour, so at 4:30. So if you have to leave, come back for that. I'd love to have you. I'm excited to have that conversation. Had it on Musso at the box, and excited to have it here with all of you. So moving forward now, you turn the page if you're LSU, and the question mark is, okay, number one, bounce back because you're finally facing adversity for the first time this year. Like, opening weekend, LSU didn't really face adversity. I know what opening day was against VMI, and sure, you had to scratch and claw. There was a couple lead changes there, but watching that game, nobody really thought that was ever really going to be in jeopardy. That team just didn't have much in the way of pitching, and you were eventually going to overtake them, and you did. And the rest of the weekend played out how it did, and you won a game in tough conditions, and we don't have to go all the way back there. But the point is, you never really faced that much adversity. This was the first real time that you did. And it's important, even looking at it as LSU being so much more of the talented team that they are between, Northern Illinois and Stony Brook. There's no guarantee that you just come back, bounce back, and win both. And LSU did that, but they did it in 2 different ways. So you get to the ballpark on Saturday, and the conditions are exactly the same as they were on Friday. And when I saw the flags, I was like, okay, that's good. I want to see if they've made any adjustments offensively and can maybe score a little bit more here. You have Luke Holman on the mound. You feel pretty good about that. And, well, boy, you were rewarded in that thinking. Luke Holman, when you need that bounce back, when you need that response, he sets the tone. 7 shutout innings. Strikes out 8 more batters, didn't walk anybody. The pitchability was off the charts. You saw a little bit more of the curveball from Holman in his second outing here this season. Really, particularly later in the game, he really started snapping that thing off. Had a much better feel for it. So you had 3 pitches with him instead of the 2. The fastball looked great up in the zone once again, and the efficiency was off the charts. Y'all, if it was not February 24th when Luke Holman pitched, and it was April 24th, he's got a legitimate chance to go complete game. Like, he's on CG watch easily right there. He was just in complete control, and he set the tone. And he needed to, because LSU's bats lacked again on Saturday. I thought, ultimately, when you look at it, there was some improvement, minor improvement from the loss to Stony Brook, but nothing that you're going to write home about. LSU had three hits. They won a game on 3 hits. They did not have a hit until Mac Bingham hit the 2-run home run in the 4th inning. So for 3 1/3, LSU was held hitless, and yet they had a 2-run lead. A run was walked in, and you had an RBI ground out to get you those 2 runs. But it wasn't anything to really write home about. And it was kind of similar to the Stony Brook game, where LSU early in the first 2 innings really drove the pitch count up of the opposing pitcher, and then after that, kind of got away from their plan. And Jay Johnson talked extensively about the plan, whether it was Friday after the game against Stony Brook or Saturday after the game against Northern Illinois. So, look, you get through it with pitching and defense. Still plenty left to be desired there offensively. You come back on Sunday now to face Stony Brook, and the floodgates opened early. I mean, LSU scores 5 runs in the first inning, and it just looked a lot different. It wasn't all the at-bats, they were competitive. LSU was hitting a lot more low-line drives, a lot more ground balls. I mean, you think back to the first 2 hitters of that ball game in the bottom of the first. Paxton Kling singles off the pitcher. I mean, it's a low liner that is no higher than the waist of the pitcher. He gets in the way of it, knocks it down, but it caroms and Kling gets on. Tommy White comes up after Kling advances to third on a throwing error and lines the ball up the middle. Though that stuff's going to play in any weather, right? And LSU was a lot more short to the ball. They are a lot more intentional at the plate, and it resulted in, like I said, an early onslaught, a 5 spot for LSU that was highlighted by the RBI single by White and then the 2-run triple by Michael Braswell. And y'all, that was a massive, massive at bat. We're obviously looking for Braswell to, kind of pick things up a little bit at the plate. And that was a huge spot because there's 2 outs at that point, and you've only got the 1 run across, but you're really threatening. And if you let them off the hook there, maybe you slip back into some of those bad habits that they had at the plate. Braswell did not allow that to happen, and that was huge. That gets 2 runs home, and then Fry followed it up with a single, and LSU was off and running. They'd had 5 more in the second and 2 more in the third and another in the fourth. They were not held to a 0 until the 5th inning. They just kept piling it on. And then when they needed to respond after the bullpen got a little shaky with some walks and some hits from Micah Bucknam and Christian Little there in the 5th inning, Stony Brook claws back, man, puts up 6 runs. Those darn Seawolves, they just won't ever friggin' go away. And I don't want to ever see them step foot in Alex Box Stadium again. But LSU responds in the bottom half with 4 more, and that really put the game out of reach at that point. So I thought LSU's pitching overall on the weekend, very good. I can point to that 5th inning that we just talked about. That wasn't ultimately what you wanted to see. But you see the depth of this staff show off yet again, where, okay, that got a little bit out of hand, but you were able to bring in Fidel Ulloa at that point, and he shuts down that inning and really settles in. And you only give up 2 runs in the final 4 frames. And again, you're able to kind of distance yourself and put it away. I understand what we said about Thatcher Herd. I thought he battled really hard. Luke Holman was incredible. And the bullpen, really outside of that 5th inning against Stony Brook and the 9th inning against Northern Illinois on Saturday, was really, really good. So they're in a really good spot at 7-1, going through this brutal stretch of 8 games in 10 days. And now they get a big test this week. They'll go to Rice in the midweek, and then they're in Houston, and that'll start with a game against Texas. And that'll be an awesome atmosphere in Minute Maid Park, and I can't wait to be there to see it. But what's more so than that is taking this team on the road for an elongated period of time is going to be huge. And it's something that I know Jay Johnson's excited about doing going forward. So that's going to be massive. And again, look, they have stuff to work on. Like, for instance, Jay Johnson, after the game on Sunday, was asked about the frustration of offense at the plate and, kind of the long-term outlook for the lineup here now 2 weeks into the season.
It's the game, and nobody wants to hear it or understands it, that watches football and basketball and thinks it's the same thing. But, I have 3 TVs in my house, in my office, and Florida's up 1-0 in the 8th. And Texas A&M beat Wagner 2-0. And so it's not just going to happen all the time easily. So that's why the work's important, and that's why the intent to the work's important. That's why, having motivated guys that are excited to show up at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. on a day, game 8 in 10 days, and work like it's the first day of practice, which they did. It's awesome. And, as long as they keep that mindset, then we'll have hope. It's going to get harder, and so we have to be hard.
The response is just something that stood out to me so much from LSU this week. Like when things like Jason, it's the game. You want to see them be able to succeed in any weather offensively, but the important thing is that they won in the same conditions the day after, when it's very easy to potentially get down on yourself there. They responded great behind great pitching. Same thing. You're going through it offensively. You come out with the 18 runs on 17 hits to cap the weekend. That's a great response from this team. It shows you everything we've talked about with there not being complacency. So overall, 3 out of 4. You're 7-1 through your first 8. You played in 10 days, and you got a big week coming up. They're in a great spot. No complaints, really, so far for LSU baseball, but we're going to talk plenty more about it throughout the rest of the show. Right now, we're going to grab our first break here of a Monday edition of AFR. Musso filling in for Moscona. On the other side, we visit with Mike Triplett from NewOrleans.football. Get a preview of the NFL Combine, talk some Saints draft, and, of course, well, it's salary cap season for the New Orleans Saints. What's the next moves on the docket for the Black and Gold as they look to clear some $40 million in cap space? We'll ask Mike Triplett that next here on AFR.
AFR.
Brought to you by Action Industries. Make sure you check them out online, on Facebook, or on LinkedIn. It's Action Industries. And, of course, when you're at the box. Every single game, all year long, out at the box. If you see a mound visit, those mound visits all season long are brought to you by Action Industries. Action Industries is a great industrial contractor that served the petrochemical and refinery markets, all the plants up and down the river for 40 years, since 1982, going on 41 years now in business. And listen, there's 2 things that I've learned talking to Chuck and all the gang over there at Action Industries. Number 1, you do not get hired to work in those plants if you don't have an exemplary safety record. At Action Industries, their safety record beats the industry standard, and you don't get rehired if you don't do quality work. Well, Action Industries has been around for 40 years. Check them out online. It's Action Industries.
Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram is taking $17,500 off new 23 1500 Bighorn trucks. We're open for business in our beautiful new showroom and taking $17,500 off new Ram 1500 trucks. All new Bayou vehicles come with a 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
There's never been a better time to catch a John Deere deal from the crew of Sunshine. Ask us about our low monthly payment options on our tractor packages and let the good times roll. With equipment strong enough to power one of the world's largest celebrations, we've got your needs covered too. Learn more about what it means to be powered by Sunshine at sunequip.com. Some restrictions apply. See dealer for details. Offer ends April 30th, 2024.
Yo, Jake here from my friends over at Community Steel Company located in Gonzales, Louisiana. The local place you can turn to for all of your metal building needs. Notice I said local, not Houston, not Dallas, not Atlanta, but right here in Gonzales. Visit them at their brand new state-of-the-art website at communitysteelco.com or pick up the phone and give them a call today to answer all of your questions on your metal buildings, roofing and sheet metal, and any other steel needs you or your business need at 225-647-2020.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows, Windows, Doors, Siding. Oh yeah, they also do interior shutters.
All right, back here on a Monday edition of AFR. Musso sitting in for Moscona. It's going to be back a little bit later on in the week, but we got you covered here, keeping the train on the tracks and then some. Let's talk some NFL. Let's talk some NFL Combine. Let's talk some New Orleans Saints. And for that, we'll go to our guy, Mike Triplett, NewOrleans.football on Twitter at Mike Triplett. Mike, appreciate the time. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So here we go. It's draft and salary cap season, so I want to get into all of it with you. Let's start on the draft side. The Combine getting underway in Indianapolis. The Saints, of course, they'll send a large contingent like they always do. I think everyone, when they think of the Combine, you think of the workouts. That's not going to take place till later, but you got plenty of build up to there. What does the week kind of look like for Saints brass as they set up shop in Indianapolis?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little of everything. It's sort of like an NFL convention. So they are looking at the prospects. They're looking at them closer than ever. The meetings are important. The medical is important. The workouts are important. All a part of the process, just like the Senior Bowl was, just like Pro Days will be, just like the scouting grades they already had on them before will be. But since the whole NFL descent on Indy for this anyway, and since we're 2 weeks away from the start of free agency, this is also where a lot of NFL business gets done. They're going to be meeting with agents if they're talking about reworking deals, if they're talking trade. They come together a lot in Indianapolis when those things happen. They can't really talk to free agents yet widespread, unless they're players that have been cut by another team, which is why this was a big time for Derek Carr and his representatives team meeting with some teams this time last year. So it really always does symbolize, here we go, the offseason is underway.
Mike, when you look at the needs that the Saints have as they head into free agency and the draft, and I mean, they can address obviously multiple needs in multiple areas, whether it be free agency or the draft. Going through Senior Bowl now, looking at all mock drafts that have been out, there's really three positions that keep being sent to the Saints, and it's offensive tackle, defensive line, or wide receiver. Is there one of those that you feel particularly is a bigger or the biggest need for New Orleans?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the defensive line is the number one need, but I think it's such a great need that they better address it in free agency. They can't just wait till the draft. They could do both, though. It's a big enough need. They need a pass rush. They need a better run defense, and they need to get younger. It's just a position that's been gutted, even though they've invested so much of it in recent years. So, all my eyes are going to be on that. I do like the offensive line for the draft, though, because I think that's a position where they need to get younger in particular. We don't know what's going to happen with Trevor Penning. We don't know how much longer Ryan Ramczyk's health is going to hold up. If they bring back James Hurst and Andrus Peat, they feel like temporary solution. So I like the idea of drafting an offensive lineman in round 1 or 2. There's a lot to choose from. A lot of those guys are going to be jockeying for position based on what they do at the combine this week. And then I think the reason receiver keeps being mentioned, I just wrote about it today. They do need one more pass catcher. I think a physical pass catcher, red zone guy, third down guy, that kind of thing. I don't think it's a must as much as the defensive line and the offensive line are, but the talent is just so great. I mean, where they're picking at 14, where they're picking at 45, there's just so many receivers in this draft to choose from, a couple of them from LSU, obviously, that, it just might line up. I do like their young talent receiver, though. There's not a lot of positions on this team where you can say, oh, the Saints have a lot of good young talent at that position, but they do at receiver. So in that sense, it's not a must, but you can always use more.
You might have just answered my next question. I was going to ask if there was a position group you were most excited to see here while, kind of keeping an eye on things in Indy. Is it the receiver group?
Kind of. I mean, they're gonna be the ones that, nationally garner the most attention. Somebody's going to run an incredible number. I mean, Malik Neighbors and Adunza from Washington are kind of jockeying to be the number 2 guy picked behind Marvin Harrison. I guess Thomas will try to get himself into the top 10 if he performs well enough. But then you could list 10 guys that, if you look at different mock drafts, different big boards, some, that are in some people's first rounds, some people's second rounds. And I think those are the guys that have a chance to make a lot of money for them if they can move themselves into sort of the top 5 group that's being looked at in the top 20 picks.
Mike Triplett is with us on Twitter at Mike Triplett, of course, NewOrleans.football. You'll give him a follow, get subscribed, go read the stuff. They all do great work over there at NewOrleans.football. Mike, I want to switch gears now a little bit to salary cap. The Saints, I think the moves that they've made so far, I don't think anyone's really surprised by them, right? I mean, whether it was, Eric McCoy, restructure, Derek Carr, I think everybody expected those to be on there. What's interesting is the bevy of different moves they could make going into the future. First, with the salary cap being $30 million more than I think expected, how much, if any, does that help the New Orleans Saints here?
Well, first of all, it's rising $30 million from last year, and I would say it's about $12 million more than people expected that we're projecting. So that helps a little. Obviously, I mean, when you start the offseason $80 million, now you only started the offseason $70 million. So it helps a little. It doesn't help a lot, but it all helps. And look, a big part of the reason why the Saints manage the cap the way they do, and people always get so frustrated by it. Fans get frustrated by it. NFL analysts get frustrated by it. But if the cap goes up and up and up and just soars like it was doing before COVID, like it's back to doing now, you really can't get in any trouble managing the cap that way. So this is just a good sign, not only that it went up $30 million this year, but that it's just going to keep going up and up. And look, that means players are going to cost more. When the salary cap was $120 million, Drew Brees became the first $20 million quarterback of all time. Now it's $250 million a team, and we have $50 million quarterbacks. So it doesn't necessarily make it easier. But it should just make people worry less about, oh no, the Saints are in this, black hole that they're never going to get out of. They really, if they ever decided we have to get out of this, or if they're ever so bad that they're totally rebuilding, or God forbid they ever have a first-round rookie quarterback on the team that doesn't cost much money, they could really get out of this abyss pretty quickly.
So, all right, let's get into a couple of the players. You mentioned Ryan Ramczyk earlier when we were talking about potentially drafting a tackle. Mike, what do they do there? Because, I mean, they could clear plenty of money in the cap with a restructure of him, but with the health issues, do you really want to spread it out over the voidable years?
Well, I mean, look, part of his salary is already guaranteed anyway, and if they restructure him, they would guarantee even more. Maybe they want to talk to him about taking a pay cut or agreeing to some health-related incentives. Maybe he would say, no, hey, I don't want to do that. You either pay me or you let me go. I think everyone seems confident that he is going to find a good medical path that is going to allow him to be competitive. He had 2 years ago when he only missed one game. He thought he had heading into this year before the knee really started acting up on him. So, I think they'll try it for another year. I mean, if healthy, he's totally worth the $17 million he's due this year. He's one of the best right tackles in the league. But that's a big one for this team. That is a position where they had a lot of money invested in a star player that they drafted well. They would like for that not to be one of their gaping holes, no doubt about it.
Alvin Kamara is always interesting this time of year too. I think restructure is definitely there. He's 29 years old now, coming off, I believe, his lowest season of yards from scrimmage, but still productive for Kamara. But there's always that hint of a trade rumor with him either. Do you think it's more likely they restructure Kamara, or would they actually consider trading him now?
Yeah, I mean, it's not out of the question when you are a running back going into your 8th year and you're due to make about $12 million. That's a position where a team looks to save money. I mean, we're seeing that storyline all around the league. Saquon Barkley stayed with the Giants, but Ezekiel Elliott moved on. Dalvin Cook moved on. A lot of guys that are in the same kind of group. So it's not completely out of the question, but I mean, I think they're excited about what he can do in this new offense. I think they still have seen spring in his step. I think, they still like the leadership and the attitude he brings to his team, all that stuff. So I don't expect it. I just would never rule it out. I think one more year is probably very likely that he remains on the team. He could absolutely be one of the next restructures we hear about. But next year, the contract is he's basically going into the last year of his contract. Next year, it'll be a much bigger talking point if it's not one this year.
Okay, and then one guy I find interesting just because, I mean, now unrestricted free agent, Zach Bond. What do you think they do with Bond?
I don't think he'll break the bank. He's a guy I think they should be looking to bring back. There's some Caden Ellis similarities here, and they liked Caden Ellis a lot, but another team, wanted to spend more. And look, that cap went up for every team in the league. So there might be some teams that have a lot of money to spend that take guys like him and just pay more than the Saints are willing to pay. But in general, it took him so long to get on the field. I don't know how other teams can make a sure thing investment on him. He's a guy I think they'd like to bring back, but if they don't bring him back, they do need. And I think either way, I think they need, a younger edge rushing guy, even if it's just in substitution packages that, like we started this conversation with, they need to find ways to improve this pass rush.
Last one for you, Mike. Your time appreciated. I guess you wouldn't, if you were expecting it, it wouldn't be a surprise, but is there anything that you potentially could foresee that maybe just goes beyond a simple restructure this year for somebody? I mean, there's plenty of aging guys on this team.
No, and look, restructuring is just, giving them the same money they were due and calling it something different so you can put it in the accounting books differently. But there's also some guys who, maybe they want to cut. Maybe they don't think they're worth the money anymore. Maybe they'll demand a pay cut. And you asked about Alvin Kamara. I think Alvin Kamara will come back at his salary. You asked about Ryan Ramczyk. Those are two guys that aren't sure things for different reasons. Another one we talked about on the show recently is Taysom Hill. He's due $10 million. I think they'll want to pay him that $10 million, and hopefully Clint Kubiak is excited to work with him with all the options, the things he can do with him. But that's still a lot of money for a guy who has become a bit player on this team. One that kind of interests me is Marcus May. If I knew he was going to be healthy, he's absolutely worth $7.5 million. But, can they count on his health after he's missed time each of the last 3 years now? So, there are some of those decisions that could be more than just restructures, no question.
He is Mike Triplett, NewOrleans.football on Twitter at Mike Triplett. And we appreciate all the time he gives us every time we call on him here on AFR. Mike, it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, that is Mike Triplett, and the latest for you there on the New Orleans Saints. I do want to get into the Saints a little bit more later on because we have another 2-round mock draft that we're going to get into, and the selections are interesting, and it ties into the conversation that we kind of just had with Mike, so it'll we'll double back to that. Right now, though, we'll remind you, of course, about the people over at First South Farm Credit.
We're brought to you by First South Farm Credit. Go to firstsouthland.com. If you're thinking of buying land, go to firstsouthland.com. They're the best. First South Farm Credit. They've been in business since 1916. You've heard our buddy Ben McDonald talk about his experience. Ben's got some hunting property in Mississippi. Finance that land through First South Farm Credit. It doesn't matter if you live in Houma and you want to buy land in Mississippi, or if you live in Baton Rouge and you want to buy land in Zachary, if you live in Monroe and you want to buy land in Alexandria, or wherever it may be, in Louisiana or any of the 48 contiguous states, First South Farm Credit can help you buy land. That recreational property, maybe your hunting property, if it's the property to build your dream home, or if it's 1,000 acres for agriculture, First South Farm Credit should be your first call. Go to the website at firstsouthland.com. That's firstsouthland.com. One more time, firstsouthland.com.
All right, set to grab a quick break here. Hour number 1 of AFR rolling on. Musso filling in for Moscona. We're going to go around the SEC on the other side. A couple former Tigers making their intentions known about what they won't be doing at the NFL Combine this week. We'll share that information with you as well. It's all still to come next here on AFR.
AFR.
Love telling you about Rouse's. Rouse's is the official supermarket of the New Orleans Saints, and of course, with it being Lent, a lot of people are looking for seafood options on Fridays in Lent. I got great news for you. They just had a price drop on crawfish by full $2 a pound. So the crawfish aren't $2 a pound, but they dropped by $2 a pound. Live crawfish over at Rouse's, $5.99, and boiled, if you're getting more than 10 pounds, $7.29 a pound. If you're getting them fewer than 10 pounds, it's $7.49 a pound over at Rouse's. The official supermarket of the New Orleans Saints is Rouse's. You can go to rouses.com, rouses.com. You can follow them on all their social media. Remember, if it is the boiled crawfish, if it's catfish fillets, if it's boiled shrimp, they have grab-and-go options at their hot and boiled kiosk at Rouse's. Just walk in, go to the left, you'll see the seafood department and the hot and boiled kiosks over at Rouse's. Rouses.com, Rouse's, this feels like home.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
The importance of doing this fortified program and offering it to people down here is, number one, the only real chance you're going to get to do this is when you put on a new roof or build new. And through companies like HUDCO, who's kind of leading the way in this thing, it's going to offer the customers a huge advantage in the insurance market and the price of their insurance.
You know, we're not looking to make a fortune off fortifying. We're trying to give you a better product than our competitor at the moment. I'm trying to do something that he can. I'm trying to give you something better. So a lot of these insurance jobs, you're getting a re-roof, you're only paying your deductible, let's sit down and talk about the Fortified and let's see what it does to your insurance premium. You're getting a steal.
Yeah.
You're getting a brand new roof and a Fortified certificate for your deductible, essentially. And I think we're rocking and rolling.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding. Oh yeah, they also do interior shutters.
Well, I wish I would have saw this tweet from Jonathan Jones before the Mike Triplett interview. That would have been helpful. Would have been great to get Mike's thoughts on this. Jonathan Jones, CBS, is a little bit of breaking news. Sources telling CBS that former Raider GM Dave Ziegler is joining the New Orleans Saints in an advisory role through the 2024 draft. 3-time Super Bowl champion in personnel. Ziegler will assist the Saints over the next 2 months. The first thing that obviously jumps out there is Raiders. Another Raiders connection here with the New Orleans Saints, whether it be Dennis Allen, Derek Carr, former players that they've brought in to, that Carr wants here, all that. The connections have been well established and well covered here, and they keep coming, and they add another one. Ziegler, a quick background, 46 years old, said the 3-time Super Bowl champion. Most of the experience in the front office came with New England. Looking at this right here, he was at New England from 2013 through 2021, so he takes care of 3 Super Bowls. Look, man, that's a great front office to obviously have been in. When Bill Belichick had that thing humming, they were doing things and putting together teams in an unconventional way, but they were able to have a lot of success doing it really up until recently. And obviously that's the connection with Josh McDaniel and how Ziegler finds his way to Las Vegas as the Raiders general manager. Was there for 2 seasons and then was fired midway through the 2023 season along with Josh McDaniels, but was there for Derek Carr's last year, so there is the familiarity there. And when they're going through building out this roster coming up and looking for more in the draft, they've gone and got an experienced front office member in Ziegler. But I think the Raiders connection might sour a lot of people on it because it's kind of what they're going. Do I think it's going to be the be-all end-all that saves the Saints? No, but I also don't think it has to be. They're just looking for another voice, and I think another voice who's familiar with the personnel that you have on your roster, and especially your quarterback. I think that's a good thing. I think that helps. So, look, we'll see how it goes. It's only for 2 months, but if he can help the Saints in any way get better, yeah, all right, I'm all for that. And that's what they're going for, and we'll see how that works. So, former Las Vegas Raiders general manager and 3-time Super Bowl champion in the front office with the New England Patriots, Dave Ziegler, going to work in a front office advisory role through the NFL draft in April, so he'll be with the Saints for about 2 months. Again, Jonathan Jones from CBS Sports with that report. All right, transition here a little bit to sticking with the NFL, but Combine. We talked a little bit about it with Mike Triplett in the last segment. A couple former LSU Tigers who are heading to the NFL Combine have made their plans for their week in Indy known. We'll start with Jaden Daniels. It was Ian Rappaport who had this report earlier today that Jaden Daniels has made it known to teams at the NFL Combine that he will not throw or work out at the Combine. He will throw it his pro day at LSU, but will only go through interviews and medical and things of that nature at the NFL Combine. You see this an awful lot, obviously. I mean, look, when you had a season like Jaden Daniels had, you've put a lot of great tape out there, right? I mean, when you have the greatest offensive season in 2023 there, of out of college football, win a Heisman Trophy. You've shown the steps you've taken, really controlling the game from the pocket, things of that nature, in-game action. You throwing routes on air to a receiver in the NFL Combine, not really going to move the needle too much, especially when you can do it at your pro day in an environment where you're obviously going to be more comfortable. He's got two receivers that he can throw to there in Thomas and Neighbors, who, I mean, obviously the chemistry's there. It makes a whole lot of sense for Jaden Daniels to take the route that he is and just go through the interviews and the interviews and the meetings and the medical, because that's as important as anything in Indianapolis. We, again, just had that conversation with Mike Triplett. Jaden's put the film out there. You've seen it enough. Go meet him in person. Go get to know him. Make sure he's fully healthy. All of that, and get the measurable side of it. And then come to Baton Rouge, watch him throw during the pro day. Another former Tiger who is not going to compete as much in the pro day. In the Combine is Malik Neighbors. This also from Ian Rappaport notes LSU's Malik Neighbors, in contention to be the top wide receiver in the NFL draft, will be at the NFL Combine for interviews, but won't run or test until his pro day on March 27th. So same thing, and again, makes an awful lot of sense where he'll be in an environment where he's much more comfortable, at LSU's pro day, catching balls from Jaden Daniels, all of those types of things. It just allows him to probably put on a better show there. And again, I think you've seen the development of Malik Neighbors, and you've seen it on the field in the game. So again, go get your interviews, go do your medical, go do all that, and show out on your pro day on March 27th. So Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors both going to be in Indy for the Combine, but not going to participate in the drills or workouts, only the interviews and meetings. We're going to go around the SEC here momentarily, but first we'll remind you about Shaw Bills.
Brought to you by Shaw Bills Tire and Auto Service, ShawBillsTire.com. 18 locations in South Louisiana. Find the location nearest you at ShawBillsTire.com. Bumper-to-bumper auto service and name brand tires at wholesale prices. They will always find a way to get you the best possible price for the best possible tires on the road. That's what they do at Shaw Bills. And when they get you in by selling you the best tires, the cheapest price possible, they're going to treat you like family, and they're going to treat you so good you're going to keep coming back year after year after year every time you need anything for your vehicle. Tires rotated, oil changed, check engine light on, brakes squeaking, whatever's wrong with your vehicle, bring it to Shaw Bills. Let them give it the once-over, and you can always schedule online, so it's convenient. ShawBillsTire.com. Find the location nearest you at ShawBillsTire.com. Shop tires online at ShawBillsTire.com. Be sure to ask about the Shaw Bills credit card as well, because you can save $50 off your first purchase when you use the Shaw Bills credit card only at Shaw Bills.
All right, a little bit after 3:40 in the afternoon. That means it's time to go around the SEC.
The Georgia Bulldogs.
All righty, so a couple new coaches for Kirby Smart over there in Athens. We'll start with a report from On3 Sports. The Bulldogs are expected to hire former Georgia Tech assistant Josh Crawford as Georgia's next running backs coach. How about that? Going across enemy lines there to Georgia Tech. Crawford spent last season as the Yellow Jackets wide receivers coach, but has quickly jumped up in the college coaching ranks after spending a large majority of his early career as one of the most respected high school coaches in Georgia. So big recruiting implications there as well. He's well known throughout the state. Of course, former Georgia running backs coach Dell McGee recently became the next head coach at Georgia State. Kirby Smart is also reportedly set to hire James Coley as the Bulldogs' new wide receivers coach. This is an interesting one. Give a listen to this. This is according to a report from Gamecock Central. It'll be Coley's second stint, at Georgia. Was there from 16 to 19, but the timing of this has people caught off guard because Coley just recently accepted the job at South Carolina, but appears to be on his way back to Athens. Before accepting the job at South Carolina, he was with Texas A&M for 4 seasons. under Jimbo Fisher, another guy who is regarded as one of the most elite recruiters in college football. James Coley and Josh Crawford, new on staff at Georgia.
The Florida Gators.
Staff change at Florida. Graduate assistant Callie James is expected to leave Gainesville and head to Jackson State as the defensive line coach. That's according to Matt Zenitz. James spent the last 2 seasons with Florida prior to his time in Gainesville. He was a player at Tuskegee University and spent time as an intern at South Carolina and as the D-line coach at Land Christian Academy. Now heads to Jackson State. They finished 7-4 last year following Deion Sanders' departure for Colorado.
The Alabama Crimson Tide.
And last week, we told you that Eli Gold, the voice of the Crimson Tide, was not going to be retained by the university. And now we know his new destination. The 70-year-old play-by-play announcer was named the voice of the Nashville Cats on Friday. The Nashville Cats are a team in the Arena Football League. Gold, of course, was the voice of Alabama football for 35 years. He called a bunch of national championships, SEC championships, bowl games, all of that stuff that I really don't want to get into. That's around the SEC here on a Monday edition of AFR as we continue to chug along. We're going to stay on time here and grab a break. When we get back, could have a change to the kickoff rule in the NFL. I'll give you some details on that, and I'm sure everyone saw what happened over the weekend in Winston-Salem with Wake Forest rushing the court and an injury, a pretty disturbing-looking injury to Duke's Kyle Filipowski. So want to give some thoughts on that as well. So we'll do that to wrap up hour number 1 of AFR next.
AFR.
Brought to you by Clegg's Nursery with 4 locations in the greater Baton Rouge area. You know where to find them, but make sure that you're checking them out online and on Facebook. This is one of the things that I always tell you. If you're wondering what they have, what the selection's like, what's new over at Clegg's, they do a great job every day when they get new shipments in of posting their new shipments that they get, so you know what they have, what their inventory is looking like at all the different stores. Now, I want to remind you of this. They have some great weed-killing products. So Musso isn't a big fan of this. Sorry, bro. I had to. Hey. But there are products that they have to treat your lawn now before your grass starts to regrow, to take care of weeds now. They got it at Clegg's Nursery. Ask about it. Buy local, shop local, Clegg's Nursery.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
BRAC teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. BRAC, your #1 park system in the nation.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz vans.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding. Oh yeah, they also do interior shutters.
Remind you about Michelli Weighing and Measurement, Michelli.com with 30 offices across 11 different states. If you weigh or measure something, Michelli sells, services, rents the products used to weigh and measure. No matter where you are, you can ship your precision measurement devices to Michelli, and they'll calibrate them for you, send them back, or they'll just come to your office, pick them up, and bring them back. They can also do on-site calibration. If you have equipment that can't leave or you don't want it to leave, they can come do on-site calibrations as well with their mobile calibration labs. It's Michelli Weighing and Measurement, online at Michelli.com. Louisiana-born, Louisiana-owned and operated for 76 years. They've continued to grow, expand their footprint while maintaining that local ownership, local feel, handshake deals, face-to-face sales. It's Michelli Weighing and Measurement. They're also hiring. Check out the careers tab at Michelli.com. Again, online at Michelli.com, Michelli.com.
All right, so hallmark of the NFL offseason, and there's plenty of hallmarks in the NFL offseason. They do a great job staying relevant throughout the entire calendar year. But one of those is rule changes. Every year, some new rule is instituted in the NFL, or there's an alteration to a current rule or whatnot. There's always improvements made in the game with the competition committee and all of that every single year. And this year will be no different. And it looks like we now know, per reports, the rule that the NFL is targeting, and it's kickoffs. Basically, the league, and look, it's been a weird relationship between the NFL and kickoffs lately, because that's one of the areas they've noticed the most concussions. So they've already altered that rule, moving the kickoff up. It's resulted in plenty more touchdowns. Now they want more returns, but they want more kickoff returns while keeping concussions down. For what it's worth, if you just look at the Super Bowl this year, in Super Bowl 59 or 58, all 13 kickoffs went for touchbacks. None of them were returned. When you look at the season as a whole in 2023, only 22% of kickoffs were returned. So they want more returns, but they don't want to have to sacrifice, the improvements that they've made in order to keep the concussions down. The competition committee has discussed this already. And again, you got all these meetings happening in Indianapolis this week, and there's plenty to do that. Further discussion was expected today from the competition committee on this here on Monday, leading up to owners' meetings in March, where, of course, you'll hopefully see more decisions. This is what they want to do, or this is what they're considering, I should say. The XFL's kickoff rule. Now, if you don't know what the XFL's kickoff rule is, here it is. The kicker lines up at his 30-yard line with the 10 other members of the kickoff team lining up at the opponent's 35-yard line, 5 yards away from the returning team. The kicker and the returner are the only players who can move until the ball is fielded. Touchbacks would be placed at the 35-yard line. So they'd move the kick back 5 yards. they'd move the return, the kickoff team across the field to the opponent's 35-yard line, just 5 yards away from the returning team. And once the ball is fielded, those guys can, engage and try to go make the tackle. That's in contrast, obviously, to the NFL team, the NFL rule where the team lines up on the 35, 8 returning team members within 15 yards. You have double team blocks that are prohibited, and touchbacks are placed at the 25. So there's a lot of incentive there to probably return it. You get an extreme head start if you're the return team, but also placing a touchback at the 35-yard line, you're giving teams 10 additional yards of field position than already. I don't know if that totally discourages you from returning it, but that feels kind of counterintuitive from what you're wanting to do there. I mean, wouldn't teams just be inclined? I mean, you're only moving the ball back 5 yards. Plenty of kickoffs are going to find the end zone still. And you're going to reward with 10 additional yards of field position if you just take the touchback? Seems to me like plenty would still just take the touchback. I hope they get kickoffs and kickoff returns back into the game of football because it's one of the more exciting plays you'll see in a game. And it can completely alter momentum too. So we'll see if they ultimately institute that rule, but that's their thinking. We're going to grab a break, come back, Sports Center, and then Glen West to talk hoops on AFR.
AFR.
There's never been a better time to catch a John Deere deal from the crew of Sunshine. Ask us about our low monthly payment options on our tractor packages and let the good times roll. With equipment strong enough to power one of the world's largest celebrations, we've got your needs covered too. Learn more about what it means to be powered by Sunshine at sunequip.com. Some restrictions apply. See dealer for details. Offer ends April 30th, 2024.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. No tags coming the way of Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, or any other running backs this NFL offseason, reports ESPN's Adam Schefter, which will make this one of the finest and deepest running back classes in the history of free agency. The Bengals placed the franchise tag on receiver T. Higgins. Sides have until July 15th to work out a long-term deal, or Higgins plays in 2024 on the $21.8 million receiver tag. On the I Am Athlete podcast, quarterback Russell Wilson said he hopes he can finish his career in Denver, but for him, it's about winning, wants to win 2 Super Bowls the next 2 years. That'll be a stretch for Wilson, believes unsportsmanlike co-host Chris Canty.
For Russell Wilson, it's a team that is a competent quarterback away from being in the postseason. I don't think there's a team in the NFL that's a Russell Wilson away from winning a championship, but I do think there are several places in the NFL that are a Russell Wilson away from getting into the postseason and winning a playoff game.
Broncos expected to release Wilson in the coming weeks. NBA Warriors guard Chris Paul slated to return from a fractured left hand tomorrow night against the Wizards in Washington.
Hey, it's your resident Super Bowl champ, Chris Canty. Coming up Tuesday as the NFL Combine gets going, I'll tell you what I'll be paying attention to the most this week. It's Unsportsmanlike, 6 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge Studios.
That's right.
And welcome in, hour number 2 of After Further Review. Musso filling in for Moscona here on a busy Monday afternoon. Glad you were along for the ride with us. Grant Lanero and Paul O'Neill here as well. 1 hour in the books, and man, we covered a lot. Went through some baseball, went through some NFL Combine, Saints salary cap, anything that's moving the needle. We're going to have a new kickoff rule in the NFL. Anything that's moving the needle, we have covered, and we have a lot to go here left. More baseball, more draft talk, and right now, some LSU basketball talk. For that, we'll welcome in our guy, Glen West from Go247. Glenn, we appreciate the time as always. How are you?
I'm doing great, Musso. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. So, look, a few months ago, there wasn't much talk around LSU men's basketball. Last 3 weeks, there has been. The hallmark of this team has been comebacks. No greater illustration than the South Carolina win and the Kentucky win, but there was others, Florida, Georgia, all. We can go through the list. What I want to know from you is sitting there watching the game against Mississippi State on Saturday night, and it starts off the way it did, where you have, I think it was 7 lead changes in the first half or whatnot, and then LSU gets behind. They're not able to come back this time. What was different?
Yeah, I mean, the comeback kids, I think, is what they've been kind of generated at, pegged as here over the last couple of weeks with the insane amount of double-digit leads they've been able to overcome. But I think really for me what the game on Saturday came down to was just an offense that really kind of lost all semblance of execution, especially in the second half. They just really struggled with turnovers. They struggled to get good looks. And I think eventually, people might not want to hear this, but the injuries just got to catch up with you eventually. I mean, this is a team that's been without Carlos Stewart and Damian Collins for several weeks now. They've been without Jalen Cook, who was supposed to be one of the best point guard additions in the entire conference this year, and what he brings as an offensive player. He's been out for the last 3 or 4 games. But really the big miss, I think, for LSU, and you really felt it in that second half, was Tyrell Ward. Arguably been LSU's best player for the last 2.5 weeks as they've gone on this, mini spurt of wins over South Carolina, Kentucky. I think he was probably your best player. They generated a lot of their offense through Tyrell, not only just from a scoring perspective, but because of the gravity that he kind of forced, with his shot making. They got him the ball, allowed him to dribble, penetrate a lot, and he was actually able to get others involved as well with his passing and just creating other open opportunities on the offensive side of the ball with his passing or with his ability to score the ball, and just the defense's attention to him in that respect. So I think LSU really missed him in the second half against Mississippi State, but You flush it here, you lose that 22-point game, and you kind of flush it and move forward, because I do think this is a very navigatable schedule for LSU over the final couple weeks here.
So, Glenn, you mentioned the injuries. Obviously, Tyrell Ward, Jalen Cook, you went through them all. Matt McMahon, I know he met with the media this afternoon prior to us coming on the air. Did he have anything to offer on updates for some of those guys?
Yeah, so it looks like Jalen Cook and Ward are both going to be kind of day-to-day. That's been the list, the official list for Jalen Cook now for several weeks. So he's been battling some leg soreness. Tyrell Ward's battling a hip injury. And then Damian Collins and Carlos Stewart are both going to be out tomorrow. So that's the official update on those four guys.
Tomorrow, of course, LSU will play Georgia. I'll get a thought on that game here before we get out of here. But a couple more just kind of in general on the run that they've been on. I mean, look, when you have a guy like Jalen Cook who's been out, you need someone to step up and kind of carry the load. You mentioned Tyrell Ward, who had been doing that exceptionally well. But I would like a thought on Trey Hannibal, just because he's somebody who's impacted the game in a lot of different ways kind of each time out, whether it be assists. He had the career high in points on Saturday, rebounds. I know he had double-digit, I believe, against Florida. Just kind of the development that you've seen from him since last year to now, and the many ways he impacts the game.
Yeah, Hannibal was actually somebody I asked Coach McMahon about today, just in terms of, because they put the ball in his hand a lot as a primary initiator on offense the last several weeks since Cook has gone out. And they've really leaned on him, I think, to create offense, and really coming into that Mississippi State game where he did not play well. He had 7 turnovers in that game. But coming into that game, he had been 42 assists to 15 turnovers in SEC play. Just really was under control. And I think that's the biggest thing with Trey, is that he plays so hard. He plays so intense on both sides of the ball that I think sometimes he plays too fast even for himself. And I think what you've seen this year is a guy who, especially when they get into a half court, is able to kind of settle in, get into the action that they want to run, and just do a really nice job of distributing the ball. His dribble penetration, I think, is probably his best asset to the team, and just the way that he's able to break defenses down and by getting into the paint. McMahon really was pleased with his rebounding, though. I mean, this is a guy who's only 6'1" or 6'2", but like you mentioned, Musso, he grabbed 10 rebounds in a game. He had 7, I think, or 7 or 8 in the win over Kentucky. And when you're able to have guards who get the ball and push, that's really, I think, where LSU's been at their best. And certainly a guy like Hannibal is the guy that once he gets the ball, he's going, man, and you better be able to keep up with him or he's going to make something happen. So I think that's probably been where you've seen the most growth from Trey this year.
He's fun to watch. I mean, you can't help but notice him when he's out there on the floor. I mean, he impacts the game in so many different ways, and he plays with an attacking mindset, energy. I like it an awful lot. All right, let's look forward a little bit here, Glenn. Before I let you go, Glen West is our guest. Go247. You can of course follow him on Twitter at GlenWest21. Glenn, Georgia. We know how that game ended last time. I mean, that was, man, they almost knocked it in there at the buzzer. Couldn't have got a better look. What needs to be different this time in the matchup? Of course, you'll get it at home, obviously, and not in Segment Coliseum, but what needs to be different for LSU to pull that one out?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to do a couple different things here. I think you've got to take care of the basketball. Last time they played Georgia, neither team did that very well. There was a combined 34 turnovers in that game, and I think LSU had 18 of them. So you've got to be able to handle the ball well, and with the potentially depleted backcourt, that's going to be a little bit of a chore. You're going to really have to ask Hannibal and Jordan Wright and Mike Williams, those guys, to really kind of handle the bulk of that and not turn the ball over a whole ton. I think you've got to be able to finish. This is a finish at the rim. This is a Georgia team that's very physical, especially on the perimeter with their length and their size. You've got to be able to attack downhill and finish at the rim. And then converting at the free throw line when you do get into the paint and you are able to create some offense in that way. LSU was outscored, I think, 19-12 in the first matchup against Georgia at the free throw line. That was obviously a big difference in the game when you only lose by 2 points. So I think those are kind of the things that you're looking for. You'd like to see them be a little bit more physical, get some of their bigs involved. Jalen Reed is a guy that I think you're really going to have to pay attention to in this game. He's really developed, I think, as a dribble penetrator as well, and somebody that I think can help take the load off some of that backcourt. production that you're asking for from a ball handling perspective. So you're going to need a lot of different guys to step up, but this is absolutely a winnable game for LSU, and I think you pretty much got to run the tables here if you have any kind of last ditch hope of making it to the NIT or some form of postseason basketball.
So that leads in perfectly to my last question, where everyone they have that eye on, okay, can they sneak into the NIT this year? That would be considering where it started. I mean, they were left for dead after they lost to Nichols in the second game of the season, and now that's a real possibility, getting to the NIT. Your 4 games left: Georgia, 2 on the road, 2 at home. Georgia and Missouri at home. Sandwiched between that is at Vanderbilt, out Arkansas. You said to get to the NIT, they need to run the table. So in a different vein, what is a successful run for LSU through those 4 games? Not necessarily saying they have to get to the NIT, but if you look at those 4 games, what would you consider a success to close out year 2 under Matt McMahon? Regular season.
I would say 3-1. If you're able to get 3 of the next 4, I think that road game against Arkansas is going to be a tricky one. But I think you can win, 3 of these 4 games. And look, I think if you do that, you're looking at an 8-9 win conference team, which is far beyond what the expectations were for this group coming in. And I think that you've seen the progress in terms of just the work ethic and the way that they've been able to kind of stay in a lot of these games against quality opponents, especially here of recent. I think that there's been some real progress made with this program here. Not where they want to be. Matt McMahon said that several times today, but when you're seeing progress and you're seeing development within the program, I think that you can't help but be encouraged about the future. And so you can go 3-1, 4-0 maybe on these next 4 games. I think that's a really great way to kind of knock out year 2 under Coach McMahon.
He is Glen West on Twitter at GlenWest21. Y'all give him a follow. Go247 does great work, and appreciate the time as always, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate you.
Absolutely, man. That is Glen West. We're going to grab a break here as we kick off hour number 2. Come back on the other side. Switch back over to some draft talk. We got some baseball talk coming up at the bottom of this hour. What does LSU do on Fridays? Has Thatcher Herd shown enough to continue in that role? Or is the replacement ready potentially for that role if they choose to go that route? That's another kind of part of that I want to discuss. But when we come back in the immediacy, we will go through a 2-round mock draft and look at how it impacts the Saints, because it's definitely addressing positions of need, but as we've talked about already in the show, they have many positions of need. So we'll talk about it on the other side here next when we continue on AFR.
AFR.
Brought to you by Darren James and Associates, brokered by LPT Realty. That's right. Darren James has launched a new group, LPT Realty, which will give so many expanded resources to you, the homeowner, as you're selling your home. Darren James will have increased access to communication and so many other resources to help sell your home for the highest dollar possible. So you're matching and marrying here the number 1 realtor in the state of Louisiana. Wall Street Journal's lists the top 1% of realtors in America, and a new company that's growing at an exponential rate that's going to give you expanded resources. I want to also mention, if you are a realtor or are thinking about getting your realtor's license, you need to call Darren James and learn about LPT Realty. Their structure and how they're allowing the realtor to keep more commissions is something that could change your life. Darren James.
Think real estate, think Darren James.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Bayou Ford has new 23 Ford F-150 STX trucks for only $39,995. $39,995 plus 1.9% financing for 72 months. And all new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques, Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Yo, Jake here from my friends over at Community Steel Company located in Gonzales, Louisiana. The local place you can turn to for all of your metal building needs. Notice I said local, not Houston, not Dallas, not Atlanta, but right here in Gonzales. Visit them at their brand new state-of-the-art website at communitysteelco.com or pick up the phone and give them a call today to answer all of your questions on your metal buildings, roofing and sheet metal, and any other steel needs you or your business need at 225-647-2020.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows, windows, doors, siding. Oh yeah, they also do interior shutters.
Brought to you by South Point Volkswagen. If you're in the market for a new vehicle, look no further than South Point Volkswagen, or should I say at least put Volkswagen on your list. If you've never driven a Volkswagen, never thought about a Volkswagen, 9 different IIHS top safety picks. That's the highest safety designation you can get. And you drive knowing you have the security of one of the safest vehicles on the road. They're so fun to drive. The great German engineering without the cost of other luxury brands. And they're built right here in the US of A at their Chattanooga, Tennessee plant. So you're supporting American jobs as well. South Point Volkswagen, Louisiana's largest volume Volkswagen dealer on Airline just north of Highland, online at southpointvw.com.
All right, welcome back here on After Further Review, Tuesday show. Musso filling in for Moscona. Here on this Monday afternoon. Grant Lanera and Paul O'Neill along for the ride as well. Wanted to talk about a mock draft here from CBS Sports. Interesting way they went about it. So, I mean, we've given you a lot of different mock drafts from CBS Sports here, on AFR throughout. Really going back to maybe about the middle of football season, of college football season, I should say. And there's a bunch of different ways these go about. So this is a 2-round mock. And it was co-authored by CBS Sports NFL Draft Insider Ryan Wilson and former Vikings general manager Rick Spielman. So how they did this, they went through this mock draft on an episode of the latest episode of the podcast with the first pick, and then CBS authored it and posted it up there. So they alternated picks throughout. That's just some background on it. You don't really have to know that, but Ryan Wilson did the even number picks and Rick did the odd number picks. But what's more important is, where they have things going. I mean, if you just want to look at the LSU guys briefly before we get into the Saints, you're seeing a lot of trends continue. Jaden Daniels in this mock is set at number 2 to the Washington Commanders. You're seeing that more and more and more and more and more. Daniels is absolutely a top 10 pick, I believe, and it looks more and more like he's locked into the top 3 and probably trending more towards number 2 overall. Malik Neighbors, you're seeing in this one at number 5 to the Los Angeles Chargers. That's something you're starting to see more and more. Him, wide receiver number 2, right behind Marvin Harrison. And I, for one, have not seen Malik Neighbors mocked below 6. So it feels like he's either going 5 to LA or 6 to the Giants. That's where you see him most often. That just hasn't changed. That's a trend that continues. One thing with the LSU guys that did catch my eye that I thought was really interesting and could be really fun to watch is Brian Thomas. So Rick Spielman made this pick in the mock, and he had Brian Thomas going to the Texans at 23 overall. When I think about what C.J. Stroud was able to do last year, really without major weapons. I mean, Tank Dell ended up having a great season. We know that. But I don't think anybody really looked at the Houston Texans receiving core as, just this embarrassment of riches for a rookie quarterback. And C.J. Stroud played so well that it kind of turned into that. Now, again, a lot of that is his doing. You get him a weapon like Brian Thomas, and watch out where that passing game can go with C.J. Stroud in his second year in the league. I mean, we've seen Thomas mocked to some pretty interesting places. Cincinnati's been one of them that I think everybody obviously would love because of the Joe Burrow connection and whatnot. But when I look at that, we've seen him to the Jaguars, him to go and play Trevor Lawrence. That would be intriguing. But, man, coming off the year that C.J. Stroud had, if you can link him up with a weapon like Brian Thomas, who's probably going to end up being one of, if not the biggest steal in the first round, just because of the athleticism that he has, the ability that he has. He's going to test off the charts in Indianapolis and obviously at a pro day. So he could end up being one of the biggest steals. And if you pair him with a guy like C.J. Stroud, that could be really, really, really entertaining to watch and intriguing, obviously, for the AFC South as well. So that's just something to keep an eye on. Hey, it's the first time I'd seen that, and it definitely caught my eye for that reason. Let's get into the New Orleans Saints. So earlier in the show, in the first hour, we had Mike Triplett on. And we talked a lot of draft with Mike, and we talked a lot of salary cap. But while we were talking draft, I asked him position of need. What's his biggest position of need for the Saints? Because I think when you look at it right now, the three that you keep seeing in these mock drafts, the three that you keep seeing in any write-up, defensive line, offensive tackle, and wide receiver. And when I asked that question to Mike, he went defensive line as his biggest position of need. And it's easy to see why. Like, if I'm to pull up the Saints depth chart right now for 2024, projected depth chart, I guess we should say, for 2024, and I look at the defensive line, Cam Jordan, obviously, but getting older. I mean, that's the caveat you have to throw out there for Cam every time. And look, even in the older age, the production was there. Not so much this past season. There was injuries and whatnot. Absolutely, I totally understand. But that's a caveat now that you have to throw out with Cam Jordan every single time. Behind him, Tano Passanio, who played well at times this past year. Isaiah Foskey, who, of course, they drafted in the second round and spent most of his rookie year injured. Opposite that, Carl Granderson, I thought really actually had a nice season there. Peyton Turner, who, again, ran into some injuries last year. Nathan Shepard, Colin Saunders in the middle. Brian Brzee, who had a nice rookie year. Malcolm Roach, who is a free agent right now. You'd have to re-sign him. But he also dealt with injuries. So that's what I look at. There's a lot of numbers. Like, there's numbers there for the Saints. I mean, we just went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys. The problem is you get thin really quick because of injury. Isaiah Foskey, Malcolm Roach, Tano Passanio, Cam Jordan a little bit. You get thinned out very fast there if you're the Saints. So what you're probably looking for is guys who are going to be on the field more consistently. I don't want to throw dirt on Isaiah Foskey yet. It was one season. Let's see how he goes. But it's unfortunate that it happened so much in his rookie season because that potentially it holds you back. You're starting a little bit more now from square one in year two. It's kind of a Trevor Penning thing, who we're going to get to. But I go so deep in the defensive line right now because in this mock draft at pick 14, Ryan Wilson has the Saints taking Byron Murphy, defensive lineman from Texas. Think it would be a great pick. He's had a great career at the University of Texas. Versatile guy there as well, 6'1", 308. I mean, you could probably move him inside. You could probably have him play a big defensive end position. So that obviously is something that you like. I mean, he obviously provides more interior, and that's one of the biggest needs there. But if you can pair him with Brian Brzee and then still have Colin Saunders, fullback extraordinaire, still have Colin Saunders, still have Nathan Shepard as well, who they just restructured his deal. So, he's obviously back. You get really strong there in the middle, and then you decide what you want to do with a guy like Malcolm Roach. I would love that pick, 100%. You go down to pick number 45 in this. Of course, that's the pick that the Saints have from Denver. And this pick was made by Rick Spielman, and it's another defensive lineman. This time it's edge rusher Chris Braswell from Alabama. Braswell's a really, really good player. I mean, look, Dallas Turner gets all the headlines, and rightfully so over there. But Braswell, opposite of him, was lethal. Like, the combination of edge rushers that Alabama had, having to replace Will Anderson was ridiculous. But I would love that. And you really bolster, because Cam's getting up there. You need relief there. It feels very much like an Isaiah Foskey pick. Like, wouldn't it? A guy who's plenty talented enough, coming in there in the second round, who you think can contribute early and immediately as a rookie, provided health. That would bolster the defensive line depth tremendously in New Orleans, and I'd be all for it. And like I said, I like Braswell as a player who was still able to put up numbers and just didn't grab the headlines because he's playing opposite of Dallas Turner. It's also one reason why he was still able to put up numbers. He's a lot of attention's going to go towards Dallas Turner. But look, the Saints have done great developing defensive linemen as well. So you get two talented players potentially, like a Byron Murphy, like a Chris Braswell in there, and I think you feel really good. The thing that gives me pause on that is I really want the Saints to take an offensive tackle in the first round. And this is similar to kind of what Mike Triplett was saying earlier too. I look at these mock drafts constantly, and it looks like such a deep class offensive tackle-wise in the NFL. Like, just in this mock draft right here, we can do this live. Do this exercise live right now. How many were taken? 1, starting at pick number 6. 1, there's 2, there's 3. Just continuing on. Now you get to the Saints at 14, and there's already been 3 off the board. Go through a little bit more. There's Amarius Mims at 20. That's 4. J.C. Latham, a pick later. That's 5 offensive tackles. And 2 still on the board right there when the Saints pick. Jordan Morgan at pick 30. That's 6. And another one who would still be on the board when the Saints pick. Tyler Guyton at pick 31. That's 6. Or is that 7? I think I lost count. And then there's Graham Barton at the very end at number 32. In this mock, the last 3 picks are offensive tackles. You have a majority. Take your pick if you're the Saints, potentially in this scenario, of guys who are being mocked first round. They're going to still be available. And look, you make your decision what you want to do with Andrus Peat. If you want to bring him back on a 1-year deal, he played really well for you at left tackle in a pinch last year. That wasn't what you expected. We didn't even know if Andrus Peat was going to be on the team last year at this time. And he ends up being your everyday left tackle. What are you going to do with James Hurst? Bring him back? Of course, you could, but James Hurst, Andrus Peat ends up kind of replacing him and Trevor Penning. And that's the other thing is Trevor Penning. And I know the Saints, Mickey Loomis, Dennis Allen, Jeff Ireland spoke about it at the Senior Bowl. Anyone you ask over there in that organization, they tell you they still have the faith in Trevor Penning and they want to bring him along. And I get that. And it's just you guys develop at their own pace and they haven't given up or whatnot. But that's hard for me to believe in a sense because he doesn't play. Like, I, along with everyone else, loved that pick when they made it. And yes, it's really unfortunate that he got hurt his rookie year and had to miss the majority of that, and that absolutely set him back 100%. But the Saints are in such a win-now mode, or at least they think they are, in such a win-now mode that he's not really being allowed to work through it. Is that fair to say? Andrews Pete was your left tackle last year. You know, when Ryan Ramchek's down, Landon Young's playing over there. How is Trevor Penning supposed to work through it and improve if he's not getting to do that in the game? So you say one thing, but you're doing something else because you're trying to win. And I fully respect that you're trying to win. But we also can't just sit here and, he's developing, he's coming along. We need to see more from him when he's not out there on the field to show you more. So, if that's going to be the case, draft me a guy this year that you think can be a franchise guy. Because you can't just keep bringing Andrews Pete back on one-year deals year after year after year. You can't just bring James Hurst back year after year after year. You can't just hope Trevor Penning develops into something when he's not playing in the game. And you have a lot of options in this year's draft at offensive tackle, and I would like to see the Saints make a move there. That is what I would like to see them do in the draft. And then at 2, if you want to take a guy like Braswell off the edge, I'm all for that as well. If you take defensive tackle, I'm not going to be disappointed. But if it were up to me, take the offensive tackle and see if you can really stabilize that line. Because your quarterback got hurt way too much last year. That's the other part of this. You got to be able to keep Derek Carr upright if you think he is the guy who's going to bring you division titles and trips to the playoffs. And if you think ultimately he can get you to the Super Bowl, you have to be able to keep him healthy and upright. And you did not do a very good job of that in his first season in New Orleans. All right. We're going to grab a break. We're going to come back on the other side. Switch it back to baseball talk. The front of LSU's rotation. Do they need to change there, or should they let Thatcher Herd keep working through it? I have thoughts, and I'm excited to talk about that next here on AFR.
AFR.
Brought to you by River City's 1 Hour Air, where they're always on time or you don't pay a dime. 752-0001, where they're always on time or you don't pay a dime. I love sharing 5-star Google reviews. Here's one from Ricky Gomez, who said Chris, his technician, was very professional and knowledgeable during the HVAC evaluation. He provided details and recommendations in a clear and concise manner. That's one of the things that always stands out. If you're having an issue with your AC or your heater, and River City's 1 Hour Air sends out a technician for an evaluation, they're going to explain your options to you. And that may sound simple, but none of it, I don't know anything about an HVAC, neither do you. Let's be honest. So whenever they go get up in your attic or they go look at your HVAC unit on the side of your house and they come talk to you, they're going to explain very clearly what's happening and your options to remedy it. It's River City's 1 Hour Air. Look for the big yellow vans and trucks with the giant clock on the side. 752-0001.
The importance of doing this fortified program and offering it to people down here is, number one, the only real chance you're going to get to do this is when you put on a new roof or build new. And through companies like HUDCO, who's kind of leading the way in this thing, it's going to offer the customers a huge advantage in the insurance market and the price of their insurance.
We're not looking to make a fortune off fortifying. We're trying to give you a better product than our competitor at the moment. I'm trying to do something that he can. I'm trying to give you something better. So a lot of these insurance jobs, you're getting a re-roof, you're only paying your deductible. Let's sit down and talk about the fortified and let's see what it does to your insurance premium. You're getting a steal.
Yeah.
You're getting a brand new roof and a fortified certificate for your deductible, essentially. And I think we're rocking and rolling.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. a family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Brack, your #1 park system in the nation.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs, even in the case of an after-hours emergency. The light in your
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding. Oh yeah, they also do interior shutters.
Brought to you by Relief Windows and ReliefWindows.com. You know, when we talk about Relief Windows every day, I always say windows, doors, siding. And now shutters as well. They do your indoor shutters. Same thing as the windows. Custom made, measured to fit your windows, custom fit for your windows, lifetime warranty on your windows, your shutters. But Brandon, you often hear say their #1 product is customer satisfaction. And that's not just a catchy line. That's not a cliche phrase. Have an experience with Relief Windows and you'll understand. They go to the ends of the earth to make sure their customers are thrilled with the work they do. As a matter of fact, Relief Windows never takes $1 from you. You will not, no deposit, no down payment. They take all the risk. They will not take $1 until you're thrilled with the work they do. Who else does that? Only Relief Windows. Check them out online at reliefwindows.com.
All right, back here on a Monday edition of AFR. Musso filling in for Moscona. About halfway home here on Monday. Glad you're hanging out with us. Let's talk about a little bit of LSU baseball here. So we kind of recapped the weekend a little bit to open the show, but I wanted to go deeper dive on something that I know I've been asked a lot about already 2 weeks through, on Musso at the Box and just on Twitter and whatnot. By the way, go subscribe to the Musso at the Box YouTube channel if you haven't already, and anywhere you get your podcast on podcast app, get subscribed as well. Share it. It's always appreciated. So I've been asked a lot there about Thatcher Herd already through. So, I mean, Thatcher Herd, we all remember what it was for him last year. Really slow start. Came on strong at the back end of the season for LSU, whether it was the outing in the regional, the extra inning outing against Georgia, and then the World Series outings. He was fantastic against Wake Forest and Florida. The national championship game, six innings, gets the win, and really looked like he was ready to springboard himself into that Friday night role, the lead role in the rotation at LSU in 2024, and that's where he has started the season. And through 2 weeks, you've had 2 starts. You have an 0-1 record, an ERA of 9, and a nice strikeout total, but it hasn't been quite what I think people were expecting. I understand that 100%. I will also say that I think we know who Thatcher Herd is at this point, though, and we've seen him at his best. We've seen him at his worst. And this is not either of those. And that's a good thing. I actually think that's a good thing. Because what I see from Thatcher Herd right now, and look, the opening day outing he had against VMI where he goes 2 2/3 and gives up the 4 earned runs, he was perfect for the first 8 outs of that game. And we don't have to rehash the whole situation, but you have the close check swing that leads to a walk, then you have a balk, then you have 4 straight hits against the top of a lineup that is probably going to be a top 10 offense in college baseball this year. They were top 5 last year. They're probably going to be the same thing. And Jay saw an opportunity to make a move and manage a game and see a situation play out early, so he went to it. He said after that game, we probably could have left him in there and let him work through it and see how far we could have gotten him. And then they did do that this past Friday against Stony Brook. And ultimately the result, it was good. The thing that Thatcher Herd's lacking right now is consistency. But it looks different to me early this season as opposed than it did early last season. And I think, again, that's a good thing. Like I said, you've seen him at his best, you've seen him at his worst, and this isn't either of those. Somewhere in between, but I actually feel like it's trending up. And here's why. So when I've talked about Thatcher Herd on Musso at the Box, and a lot of it was during the preseason, looking back at his season last year and what the expectation should be. And I think there was a clear demarcation of where you could break it literally in half. He made 23 appearances last year, and you could get it pretty close, to half. The first 11 and then the last 12. Excuse me. And I remember the demarcation because I remember doing a recap episode last year after that Nichols game in the midweek and saying, okay, wait a minute, that kind of looked a little different. Can he build off of that? And really every week throughout that, it was just, okay, is he building? Is he building? Is he building? We talked about it throughout. So going back, what made me think to myself, okay, that looks a little different, and this is last year, was in that first inning, he got the start against Nichols in the midweek. In that first inning, he got in trouble. But he finally limited the damage. It was the first time really all year in 2023 that he did that. That was a big problem for Thatcher Herd last year where it just got out of hand on him. It snowballed. He could never limit the damage. He finally started to do that. That Nichols game was the first time. And more, he just kept doing it, until ultimately he's starting the national championship game for you and being awesome there. Or the outing he had against Auburn where he just shoved in the eighth. That stands out too. This version of what you're seeing from him right now, early in 2024, looks more like that to me, where it's not just the catastrophic inning. I get it. Opening day, sure. That spiraled, but it spiraled differently. There weren't walks. He got hit against a good lineup. That's going to happen. Y'all, Paul Skeens gave up 5 earned runs to Kentucky in the regular season. It's going to happen. And I'm not trying to compare. I'm using Paul Skeens as an example because he was so darn great and elite. And even he got tagged for like 5 runs in a game. We forget about that because LSU was up like 11-0 2 innings into that ball game. But there you go. What you saw Stony Brook against Stony Brook from Herd, 4 1/3, and he limited the damage very well. Do you want more than 4 1/3 innings from your quote-unquote Friday night guy? Absolutely. 100%. Don't misunderstand me. Yes, you need more than that. But he only gave up 3 runs. He left in a 1-run game, and you had 6 chances at bat after that, and you got nothing. So he battled hard, and it could have been a lot worse. That second inning, he got out of a bases-loaded jam. You had a bit of a misplay in right field. That's going to happen sometimes. It was a really tough day to catch a fly ball. Stony Brook's center fielder almost got hit in the face with one. Josh Pearson kind of lost that a little bit, started in instead of going, and then had to run back. Like instead of his first step being back, it was in. He just got wrong-footed a little bit. I'd rather him make that play in Omaha than week 2 against Stony Brook, right? I mean, it looked like that catch he made in Omaha is the play that it was. I'd rather him make it there than there. It's unfortunate. It allowed a second run to score. Whatever. What stood out was Thatcher Herd ending that inning with the bases loaded and not allowing that to spiral on him. Same thing in the 4th inning. He got out of a bases loaded jam after he had lost command. And that was really the first time all year you had seen him lose command. And that was a big problem for him last year. What he needs to do now is refine it a little bit. He's throwing a lot of strikes, just aren't always the most quality, and it's getting hit. Thatcher Herd right now, the biggest problem I see for him is the opponent's batting average against, and it's .355. That's out of character for him. It was below 250 last year. He's got it in there. Now, I say all that to get to this point. Do you make a move this early in the season and switch out your Friday night guy? And it's a great question. And here's my answer. I say no for now. I think LSU has multiple options on this team to be your Friday night starter. And ultimately, I will tell you, I think Gage Jump takes that role. It's not to say that Thatcher Herd doesn't have Friday night stuff. He absolutely does. It just looks so much different when Gage Jump throws a baseball. Like, when LSU has to go face Hagen Smith, who's throwing 100 now, by the way, in Arkansas, and just had one of the most insane stat lines on Friday, which we're going to talk about with David Dellucci. But I want the guy who looks like him out there. Gage Jump does. Thatcher Herd can absolutely do it. He can get there. And he will. But I look at Gage Jump and I see a true ace. Potential for a true ace at the front of LSU's rotation. I know a lot of you are going to ask about Luke Holman, and I get it. Why not? Luke Holman filled in that Friday role quite nicely for Alabama last year. Makes a lot of sense. Here's what I'll say about that. And the only reason I don't think, it wouldn't surprise me if they made that move this week and let Holman go pitch Friday night. But the reason I don't think that they will is they're so focused on routine over there. That's part of the reason, it's a large part of the reason Paul Skeens pitched against a Tulane team that had 19 wins last year. They don't want to get him off routine. And Holman's rolling right now. Do you really want to do anything to disrupt that? I wouldn't. And I don't quite think Gage Jump's ready for that spot yet. They still want to ramp him up. So I think you roll with Thatcher Herd for right now. The good thing is Thatcher Herd's going to figure it out again this year. He's going to pitch in big games for LSU. He's going to win big games for LSU because he's really talented. And the great thing is we're honing in on this. And the only reason I'm doing it is because, like I said, people have asked. But with the arms you have multiple options that can start on any day of the weekend for you. And if they're pitching to their capabilities, it doesn't matter which day they're throwing. Jay was constantly asked, who's going to be the Friday night guy? Who's going to be the Friday night? And every time he'd say, it's just another game. It doesn't have that much significance, to me to be, he's starting the first game or whatnot. You want one of your best guys to start every game for you because you want to win every single game that you play. Thatcher Herd is one of their best guys. He will figure it out. And for right now, I don't think you change anything. And I want to see him in that highly competitive environment against Texas because he pitched great against them last year in the midweek. And this is going to be an awesome atmosphere Friday night in Minute Maid Park. And knowing the competitor that Thatcher Herd is, I think that's a spot that he could really rise to the occasion. So I want to see that. That is kind of your final test, I think, of, hey, can he be the Friday night guy? All right, go do it lights bright against a ranked Texas team on a neutral field in front of probably 23,000 people. If you can handle that, he can absolutely do it in the SEC. But wherever he pitches in the rotation, he's going to figure it out, and he's going to be a big piece for LSU this year. So be patient. I think he's more on the uptick than he was at the beginning of last season. So I think that's a very good thing for Thatcher Herd. I'm still very encouraged with everything that I've seen from him. He's a great arm talent, and LSU's should be glad to have him. All right, we're going to grab a break, come back on the other side. We'll close out hour number 2 of After Further Review. Musso in for Moscona. Stick around.
AFR.
Get Gordon and get it done. Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys. If you've been injured and it's not your fault, do what injured people in Louisiana have done for more than 30 years. Call Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys. 888-8888. It's all 8s. 888-8888. I don't even need to give you the area code because no matter where you are in the state, it doesn't matter. Just dial 888-8888 for Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys. Gordon does an awesome job, man. He's a great person. They've been so invested in our communities with all the charitable and service work that they do. They give back into the communities that they represent, no matter what time of year. If it's the bike giveaway for kids around Christmas time, if it's the laptop giveaway around back to school time, if it's the charitable work they do during October for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, they're always involved in the community. We tell you all the time, of course, about the G Team and what Gordon's done with NIL and the opportunities that he's afforded student athletes. Just a great, great community partner. If you've been injured, you need representation, go to getgordon.com. That's getgordon.com. Get Gordon and get it done.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Yo, Jake here from my friends over at Community Steel Company located in Gonzales, Louisiana. The local place you can turn to for all of your metal building needs. Notice I said local, not Houston, not Dallas, not Atlanta, but right here in Gonzales. Visit them at their brand new state-of-the-art website at communitysteelco.com or pick up the phone and give them a call today to answer all of your questions on your metal buildings, roofing and sheet metal, and any other steel needs you or your business need at 225-647-2020.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding. Oh yeah, they also do interior shutters.
Always a pleasure to tell you about our friends at the Williamson Eye Center. Check them out online at williamsoneye.com. They've got locations all over the greater Baton Rouge area. On the Baton Rouge General Campus, you turn off a Bluebonnet onto Picardy, you make that right. And then right there at the stop sign, the building on the right, the first 2 floors, that's the Williamson Eye Center. State-of-the-art dry eye center, and it's full service. Of course, they have their state-of-the-art surgery center there where you can have your LASIK or whatever surgical procedure you're having. But they have your standard annual eye exam as well at the Williamson Eye Center. Learn more at williamsoneye.com. The thing I tell you every day is take the advice that I was given and change your life. To give yourself the gift of sight is absolutely incredible. If you're someone like me who spent your life with contacts or glasses, there is a way to be done with it forever. williamsoneye.com. Go see Dr. Blake Williamson for that free consultation. 924-2020, 924-2020, or williamsoneye.com for the Williamson Eye Center.
All right, back here closing out hour number 2 of AFR. I wanted to leave myself more time for this, and I didn't. I don't know if I have enough time. I wanted to talk about what happened at the end of Duke and Wake Forest on Saturday night when, of course, Kyle Filipowski for Duke was injured after the Wake Forest fans, stormed the court after their 83-79 win over Duke. I'm sure by now you've seen the video. All right, let's give it a go. Let's give it a go to try and knock this out here. Wake Forest wins 83-79. Fans rush to court. There's video, again, by now you've probably seen it, of a Wake Forest fan. He's running up. Filipowski's trying to walk off the court. Fans are rushing on. This fan runs up to him to taunt him, and while taunting him, collides with Filipowski's knee. He goes down in agony. It looks pretty bad. He was asked after the game if he felt like it was personal, if it was intentional, I should say.
I've already heard that there's some videos of getting punched in the back, and so I absolutely feel like it was personal, intentional for sure. Like I said, there's no reason where they see a big guy like me trying to work my way up the court and they can't just work around me.
So look, watching the video, the taunting was absolutely intentional. I don't think the guy went for his legs. We're gonna come back to this in the show. Hour 3's next.
AFR.
There's never been a better time to catch a John Deere deal from the crew of Sunshine. Ask us about our low monthly payment options on our tractor packages and let the good times roll. With equipment strong enough to power one of the world's largest celebrations, we've got your needs covered too. Learn more about what it means to be powered by Sunshine at sunequip.com. Some restrictions apply. See dealer for details. Offer ends April 30th, 2024.
Bayou Ford has new 23 Ford F-150 STX trucks for only $39,995. $39,995 plus 1.9% financing for 72 months. And all new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
I'm Christine Lisi. It appears no running backs will be tagged this offseason, reports ESPN's Adam Schefter. That would make this one of the finest and deepest running back classes in the history of NFL free agency. The Bengals, the first team to use the franchise tag this offseason, officially placing it on receiver T. Higgins. Since being selected 33rd overall in the 2020 draft, he's hit the 1,000-yard receiving mark twice, and playing alongside Jamar Chase, Higgins has been one of the best number 2 receivers in the league. Pro Football Hall of Famer and First Take co-host Shannon Sharp.
I think you owe it to this team, you owe it to your fan base to try to bring it back at least one more year before it becomes cost prohibitive, because Jamar Chase is eligible for a contract extension. So I think this was the only move that you could do, is that you franchise T. Higgins one more season, try to get this thing back. Hopefully Joe Burrow can stay healthy and make a Super Bowl run at this thing.
Bengals and Higgins have until July 15th to get a long-term extension done, or he plays this season on the $21.8 million receiver tag. NBA Warriors guard Chris Paul set to return from a fractured left hand tomorrow night against the Wizards.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. At Progressive, they're making things even easier. They'll help you bundle your home and car insurance together so you can save on both. Learn more at Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE.
Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge Studios.
That's right.
And welcome in hour number 3 of After Further Review here on a Monday. Final hour, driving you home. Musso in for Moscona. Grant Lanero, Paul O'Neill along for the ride as well. And glad you are along for the ride with us here. 2 hours in the books. We have covered an awful lot. Still a little bit of football to get to that we will later in this hour. UCLA on LSU's football schedule here coming up in September made a pretty noteworthy hire at offensive coordinator. How does that change what the Tigers might see in Death Valley there in week 3? We'll touch on that. But we will begin the 5 o'clock hour with baseball. Week number 2 is in the books in college baseball. We welcome on David Dellucci, SEC Network, here with us on Mondays to recap it all. David, we appreciate the time. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, look, want to get some big picture thoughts on a lot of different things in the SEC now 2 weeks in, but I want to start with LSU because, look, there's been 2 kind of main questions being asked right now through 2 weeks. I want to start offensively. I know Jay Johnson wasn't pleased for about half the weekend what he saw at the plate from the Tigers, but they came out with the onslaught on Sunday against Stony Brook to cap off the weekend. What have you seen so far from LSU and why maybe there's been a little bit of inconsistency at the plate here for them 2 weeks in?
Well, I think it's still early on in the season, and I went up to Ole Miss to announce their 3-game set against High Point. That's a team that scuffled early on. We're in a day and age in college baseball where there's a lot of transition, a lot of new players coming in. It takes a little while to get a feel for things. You've got guys playing different positions than they're used to. That wears on you mentally. And you just can't expect for an LSU team to come out right out the gate and be where they were last year when the season ended. Yeah, you got big-time power hitters in Tommy White and Travinsky, but there's some other guys that just need to get their timing down early in the season. The weather's still a little chilly, so have a little patience with that. But I think all in all, they seem to be starting to come around. LSU's hitting the long ball very well. The consistency is not there. But if you look at the players' track record and Jay Johnson's track record for the teams that he coached, they will be an offensive squad as we get into the warmer days and into the middle part of the season.
I think when everybody looked at this team preseason, they really focused in on the pitching staff. And another thing where I think it feels early in the season, right? It's one of those things. We actually just spent a good chunk of a segment in the last hour talking about it, but people have already wanted to know what's up with Thatcher Herd. I actually think he looks closer to what he did at the end of last year than the beginning of last year. What have you kind of seen from him as he tries to settle into the front of LSU's rotation?
He has been a little inconsistent. I mean, but look, he threw 4 1/3 innings. He gave up 3 earned runs, 4 walks. I think you want him to clean up his base on balls and free passes, but 8 strikeouts. He's got good stuff, man. I think you're going to see him throughout the course of the year, hopefully clean it up a little bit, but you'll take the strikeouts with the walks, especially when the offense comes around and can put runs on the board. Luke Holman is a guy that may end up being your game 1 starter. I mean, this dude is as effective as they come. This time throwing 7 innings, 8 strikeouts. He's just a really good pitcher, especially if you're a defender. You want to play behind him because he's going to pound the strike zone. And Javen Coleman did really well. So, I mean, if you want to compare this team to last year, compare them to the beginning of the season where that pitching rotation, there was a whole bunch of question marks there. I think you're better off today, but I don't think you've seen the guys really locked in like you will as we move forward.
You read my mind there. I was going to Holman next. The efficiency definitely stands out for him. I mean, David, if it's not February 24th when he's pitching, I mean, if it's like April 24th, he's got a legit chance to go complete game there. He was just completely locked in. What is it about him that allows him to be so efficient? I mean, you hear the term pitchability so much in the game of baseball, and that seems to apply to him.
Most certainly. It's a young man that has confidence in all of his pitches. And, you know, when you talk about Luke Holman, you don't necessarily talk about blowing up the radar guns and hitting 97, 98 and wowing you with that. He is just going to have a feel for the game. And what I really love about Luke Holman is he's going to make adjustments as the game goes on. I've called a couple of his games in the past, and if the team that adjusts to a fastball, he is immediately going to show you his off-speed pitch and dominate with that. So I think he brings a whole bunch at you. His consistency around the plate is great, and he's fearless. He knows what he has. He knows what his job is, and he's just going to toe the rubber. You've seen him at his best. I think he's going to get better, but there will be times when in the SEC where he's going to get touched up a little bit, but he's the type of pitcher that will not be phased at all.
It's certainly been for all the talk of it's early, let's wait to see how it plays out. That one's hard to look at and not be like, okay, that's kind of an unquestioned hit right now, 2 weeks into the season out of the transfer portal for LSU. I want to switch gears a little bit to the SEC. So look, LSU played Stony Brook mid-afternoon on Friday, so I'm sitting there scrolling Twitter on Friday night, and I see that Hagen Smith is striking out quite literally everybody that he's facing. Ends up with, man, one of the more absurd stat lines I've ever seen, 6 innings, 17 strikeouts, so 17 of 18 outs. Is Hagen Smith a real human being?
Yeah, he's unbelievable. And look, you know, when fans have questions about teams early in the year, look back to weekend 1. Hagen Smith really had a poor performance. A lot of that had to do with the cold weather, but a lot of fans jumped off the bandwagon and said, look, I think he's just overrated. He comes back against Oregon State, by the way, number 7 team in the country when he faced them, and he mows down the first 15 guys by striking. That's just unbelievable. 17 strikeouts total. And the first thing I thought of is Ty Floyd had a magical game in the College World Series. He struck out 17 batters, but that was over 8 innings. This is 17 batters over 6 innings. Just truly incredible. It's a left-handed pitcher that is going to pump 95, 96, at times reach 97 miles an hour with good breaking stuff. That Arkansas pitching staff came in with a lot of upside, and this weekend they totally dominated. Look, in Game 2 against Oklahoma State, they lost in extra innings to a squeeze play, but their pitchers struck out 25 guys in Game 2. So big-time effort by the Hogs.
That was a big weekend for them over there up in Globe Life, man. It's a great event. They played some great competition. Keeping it in Texas, I wanted to ask you about the Aggies because I feel like they're kind of flying under the radar, but they've been quite impressive the first 2 weeks. I mean, obviously the start that Jace Laviolette's gotten off to at the plate, but, man, they can pitch it too. That's no slouch of a rotation that Coach Slosh has over there in College Station.
And that was their downfall last year. You know, if we want to remember back there, they had all the offense you could ask for. They just couldn't hold the opposing team down below what they were able to come across the plate. And this year, it's been truly incredible what that offense is. In opening weekend, they only gave up 1 run. And here we are right now after 2 weeks. They're 7-0, and in those 7 games, they've only given up 8 runs total to go along with a very good offense. You talked about Laviolette, who's one of the most powerful hitters in the country. They're going to score runs. I mean, they're beating guys by double digits, but the pitching staff has really been something that you've got to be impressed with. And talking about the power and the ability to score runs, they outscored their opponents this past week 49-7. That's pretty impressive. Now they haven't faced top tier competition, but that's still pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, that plays 100%. It's to the point where it's like, man, because baseball, anyone can beat anybody, in the game of baseball. Last one for you here. David Dellucci is our guest. Time very much appreciated. Of course, you can follow him on Twitter at David Dellucci. You mentioned you were up at Ole Miss, and I wanted to ask you about the Mississippi schools, because I think obviously coming into the season, the expectation wasn't super high. They were both coming off of down years, but again, it's baseball. Are you surprised that the start has been so slow for both of them again?
I am. That Ole Miss start in Hawaii, that's a difficult place to play because of the time zone. I mean, I get it. Maybe they were off, their bodies weren't on schedule. Then they go home. Their opening game is a midweek game. They lose to Arkansas State. And then High Point comes in Friday night in game 1 and just beats the brakes off of them. I mean, Ole Miss really did not have a chance against a pitcher that was throwing about 84 to 86 miles an hour. And you start to scratch your head and go, man, there's some good transfers over here. Are they ever going to figure it out? And then game 2, they win by the run rule, 12-2, 4 home runs hit in that game. Game 3, it was 11 runs scored in the first inning. They end up scoring 25 runs. And I remember looking at my scores sheet in the second inning, the 1 through 5 batters were 8 for 9. They had 4 home runs and 5 walks. They reached base 13 out of 14 times. That's dominant. I don't care who you're facing. So I think we got a glimpse of what Ole Miss is capable of. Mississippi State has better pitching this year, but they just haven't found the offense, and those guys aren't hitting the ball out of the ballpark. And you're going to have to do that when you face big SEC teams in the future.
It's a long year, and we're 2 weeks into it. And, man, I know me and a lot of other people, you are glad that it is college baseball season. It's a great time of year. David, we appreciate the time as always, man. Thank you.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Have a great day.
You too. That is David Dellucci, SEC Network, of course, former major leaguer, former Ole Miss Rebel. Played plenty of baseball, so a great voice in the sport there. Very much enjoyed the chat. All right, we're going to grab a break. We're going to come back on the other side, switch gears, LSU football. UCLA, we keep having to talk about these Bruins here on AFR because they keep making hires that are going to impact that game in September. So we'll talk about the latest one, the OC hire that was made over the weekend in Westwood. That's next on the other side of this break on AFR.
AFR.
Love telling you about Glow Resources. Complete employer solutions. That's Glow Resources. That's Jareth Knockan and all my friends over at Glow. I remind you all the time about Glow Resources. It's GLO. GlowResources.com. If you're a business owner, remember, that's who Glow works for. They work for you, the business owner. And it's not just in Baton Rouge. It's Baton Rouge, Houston, Miami, New Orleans, Orlando, Ridgeland. They got resources, and they've got companies and locations all over, and they can place employees anywhere for your job in any industry. Maybe it's mechanical or heavy machinery. Even if you need professional employee solutions, if you need management solutions, they've got you covered there as well. It's Glow Resources. Listen, hiring has been tough for so many businesses since COVID. Stop guessing. Let professionals at Glow help with complete employer solutions. It's Glow Resources. Again, learn more online at glowresources.com.
There it is, the extra mile. On the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
He's here. Anyone want a Coors Light?
Oh, shoot, I forgot to play the song. I got a guy who can fix this.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Yo, Jake here from my friends over at Community Steel Company located in Gonzales, Louisiana. The local place you can turn to for all of your metal building needs. Notice I said local, not Houston, not Dallas, not Atlanta, but right here in Gonzales. Visit them at their brand new state-of-the-art website at communitysteelco.com or pick up the phone and give them a call today to answer all of your questions on your metal buildings, roofing and sheet metal, and any other steel needs you or your business need at 225-647-2020.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding. Oh yeah, they also do interior shutters.
Mold Zero, now pure restoration. Same patented non-toxic dry fog treatment. If you got mold, think you might have mold, not sure if you have mold. Mold can be in your walls, you don't even know about it. Pure restoration comes in. You don't have to worry about moving furniture, pulling up carpet, any of that sort of stuff. They come in, they'll spray their patented non-toxic dry fog. Your home, office building, commercial building, whatever it may be, they're going to be more efficient than traditional remediation. It's going to cost you less as well. I love telling this story. There was an elderly woman who's a homeowner, had black mold on her ceiling, and she couldn't get a quote from anywhere that was less than $28,000. This was an elderly widow. Mold Zero came in, got rid of the mold for less than $5,000. Mold Zero is now pure restoration. Same company, same great patented non-toxic dry fog. They're general contractors, so they can do demolition and build back when you need it. They can take care of odor, sanitization. It's pure restoration. Pure-restoration.com. Pure-restoration.com.
All right, welcome back. Musso in for Moscona here. Monday edition of AFR presented by Relief Windows. Plenty still to get to here. Otter locks still to come. Otter coming off a great week last week on AFR, 10-1-1 for the Otters. So fired up to get him back to do that. And I do have a couple more takeaways from LSU's baseball weekend that I want to get to before we get out of here. But I want to talk a little bit of LSU football here in this segment while we have the time. So I'm sitting at dinner on Saturday night with some buddies, and all of a sudden everyone's phone kind of lights up, and you look down at it, and it's an alert from ESPN that UCLA has hired a new offensive coordinator, and that it's Eric Bieniemy. I believe it was Adam Schefter and Pete Thamel who had it first. Looking at Adam Schefter and his tweet right there says, former Commanders offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy is finalizing a 2-year deal to join UCLA staff as its associate head coach / offensive coordinator. Sources tell ESPN's Pete Thamel and me. Of course, that's Adam Schefter. I would imagine, like me, when you saw this news, many of you were pretty surprised. It's always really interesting to figure out, what Eric Bieniemy's next move is going to be. He seems to always dominate, a coaching carousel cycle in the offseason. And the way it ended in Washington is interesting. For what it's worth, he, in an email to ESPN, Bieniemy, noted that it was his choice. He was not, he was not fired in Washington by the Commanders. He has no regrets. I quote, I actually just chose not to stay. Learned a lot, and that is always a good thing. So he wanted to move on. I think what would catch people by surprise is him going back to college. And this will be the second time that Eric Bieniemy has gone from the NFL back to college. The first time was in 2011 for the 2011 season. In 2010, from 2006 to 2010, he was with the Minnesota Vikings in a variety of different assistant roles. He left that Vikings position to go to Colorado, where he played football. That's his alma mater, and be the offensive coordinator. And then left there and went to the Chiefs. And then that's when all the success blows up with Patrick Mahomes, wins Super Bowls, conference championships, all of that, and starts to be mentioned for head coaching jobs and whatnot. Ends up with the Commanders as the OC, associate head coach, for one season, and now is going back to college. So look, he's got plenty of experience as a college coach, recruiting, all of that. He's been at UCLA before, from 2003 to 2005. He was at UCLA, running backs coach, and then the last year was also the recruiting coordinator. So from a recruiting aspect, that makes a lot of sense too. But it's a big hire for Deshaun Foster, man, over there in Westwood. And like I said, one that I think caught me and probably just about everybody else by surprise. Now, what does it mean for LSU when UCLA comes here on September 21st? Because I think if it was anybody else, if it wasn't that big of a name, we probably wouldn't talk about it that much, right? Not in the sense that we did with like Deshaun Foster and Chip Kelly leaving and then Deshaun Foster taking over, as the head coach there. And what is that going to mean for the program? But that's a big name. And it's a really successful guy with I think it's 16 years of 16 years of NFL experience. Now, the game's different. I understand. It doesn't always translate. But Eric Bieniemy, in his email that he sent into ESPN, noted that guys who have had the success going from the NFL back to college, noted Pete Carroll, Nick Saban, Jim Harbaugh. And again, all of those are in a head coaching role, and that's probably different. But I'm certainly not going to scoff at a guy bringing 16 years of NFL experience, who's also got plenty of college experience and has been an OC in college before, as well as the highest level of football, coming in, especially when they're on the schedule for the team that I cover. And that's what this is. So what does it mean for LSU? Well, I think when you look at UCLA, and there's not a lot of expectation for them, which is why this hire is intriguing to me, because I think Eric Bieniemy has a chance to have pretty early success there. I mean, y'all, Ethan Garbers has looked good at quarterback for UCLA, especially in that bowl game. He's back. That's a veteran piece that Bieniemy has to work with right there. That's big. They got a couple wide receivers. One of them who was going to enter the transfer portal looked like he was heading to that was Keegan. Looked like he was heading to UConn, but has pulled his name out of the transfer portal and is back for UCLA now. I mean, it's not the most wild numbers you've ever seen. That's Keegan Jones I'm talking about, but it's again a veteran piece. J. Michael announced that he's returning as well, and he's foregoing the draft to do that. So, I mean, you have two talented pieces on the outside there at receiver, and then when you look at running back, man, TJ Harden was awesome against USC last year for the Bruins and in the bowl game against Boise State. In that, he ran for 250 yards and 3 touchdowns, over 800 yards in the season. So there's good pieces there for Eric Bieniemy at all 3 levels. So we'll see what the offensive line ends up being for UCLA next year. But when I look at an experienced coach like that, that's something that immediately steps up on my radar, especially when you look at LSU and what they're going to have to be defensively, the improvement that they're going to have to make under Blake Baker, and we all expect them to. But you're going to get that answer very early on when they go face USC out in Vegas and a Lincoln Riley offense. You're going to see how much they have improved through spring and fall camp to that point, and if they're ready, because that offense looks pretty good too, minus Caleb Williams. That doesn't really quite matter right there. And I think Lincoln Riley's kind of shown that too. He's plug and play with a quarterback in his system. So you'll get your answer very early there. But depending on what that happens, how that plays out, what happens to LSU in that ball game, definitely puts the UCLA game more on your radar, knowing who's going to be calling plays for the Bruins and knowing that he does have veteran pieces on that offense returning who shouldn't, I should say, be phased, in their third and fourth years in college football. So, look, Sean Foster wants more of an NFL, wants to run more of an NFL type ship over there at UCLA. And to do so, he went and got an offensive coordinator with 16 years of NFL experience, who's now making his second trip back to college. I'm fascinated to see how that plays out, and we'll get an up close and personal look at it on September 21st when UCLA comes to Death Valley. All right. It is a Monday edition of AFR presented by Relief Windows. Musso is filling in here for Moscona and about to really get that to close this shop up for the day. What I do want to do before we get there is I wanted to circle back to something we tried to close the second hour with, and that's what happened at the Duke and Wake Forest game on Saturday night. I'm sure, again, like I said, by now you've probably seen this. Wake Forest upsets Duke. They storm the floor. It's a huge win for them. They're getting, they're making their way, trying to trying to earn an NCAA tournament bid. That was a huge win for them. And the fans did what fans do. They celebrate. They rush the court. And in doing so, Kyle Filipowski for Duke is trying to leave the court. A Wake Forest fan runs up to him to taunt him. Like, you can clearly see it on the video. He is taunting him. And in doing so, Filipowski's still just trying to walk off the court. And while the fans taunting, they collide. And it looks like they hit knees. And it looked like a pretty gruesome knee injury for Filipowski. And he had to be helped off the court and protected by, medical personnel and whatnot while fans continued to rush the court. And it's obviously garnered a lot of national attention, as it should. Storming the floor or a field or whatever is one of the more emotional things in sports. And it's one of the things that does make sports great, but it's starting to get out of hand a little bit. I'm not going to be the guy who's going to tell you don't do that. Don't have fun. No, because I've been a part of doing that from a fan perspective, and it's awesome. But you have to keep that crap within reason. And by that crap, I mean, don't go taunt a player. Grow up. Because you're lucky you didn't get taken out. Like I said, it's one of the more emotional experiences in sports, not just for the fans, but for the players too, who just lost a game or just won a game. Don't go get in somebody's face. Have a little bit more respect than that. Now, the other side of this is something that Kyle Filipowski said, or Flip as they call him, said after the game. We played this at the end of the second hour. I want to play it again. He was asked after if he felt like it was intentional. The contact was intentional, and here's what he said.
There's no excuse for that. I've already heard that there's some videos of getting punched in the back, and so I absolutely feel like it was personal, intentional for sure. Like I said, there's no reason where they see a big guy like me trying to work my way up the court and they can't just work around me. There's no excuse for that.
So here's what I will say. He's talking about punches in the back and whatnot. We can have that conversation. If that did happen, and I'm sure there's video of it, again, no place for that. I think saying that the contact to the knee was intentional is a very bold accusation to make. And I think when I watch that video, and I know we were playing it here if you're watching on YouTube, I don't see that as being intentional. You can look at the guy who collided with him. He's looking at Kyle Filipowski, and clearly taunting him. That's intentional. But when they collide, he's looking right at him. He's not looking at the knee. And they collide while he's mid-run, taunting, and Filipowski's walking, so his legs extended. The contact looks incidental to me. It doesn't look intentional. Now, again, if there's punches to the head or whatever that he's saying, sure, that's 100%. And something does need to be done about that. There's ways to find the fans who are doing that and make sure that they're not allowed back in a building. And I fully expect probably something like that maybe to come of this. But here's the other thing that I don't think is getting enough is not getting talked about enough with this. And it's the fact that the ACC as a conference has no penalty for court storming or for field storming. None. You know how the SEC has their series of fines or whatnot? The ACC has nothing. It's left up to each individual school. That's ridiculous. That's how something like this ultimately happens, when there's literally nothing to discourage fans from running onto the court or running onto the field. Where there's nothing to discourage schools from discouraging fans from running on the court and running on the field. I mean, you had the Caitlin Clark thing earlier this year, and we all had fun with that because it got blown up probably more than it was. But when LSU stormed the floor against Kentucky, Angel Reese got knocked over. Can you imagine if she would have gotten hurt? That would have been awful. But for a conference to have no penalty is mind-boggling to me, considering the rate that this happens. And I mean fans rushing the playing field. That's patently absurd. The SEC went as far as to experiment with, you're going to lose a home game. You know, if you exceed the amount of time. All right, here's a fine, you do it again, you're losing a home game. Now, they ultimately didn't go that route, but they toyed with it. I'll be curious to see if this forces the ACC to finally have some type of policy and what it impacts other conferences around the country as well. Because the SEC just instituted their new fine structure, but do they go back to, hey, lose a home game? And there definitely needs to be some punishment for the fans that were involved in the contact, the incident, whatever you want to call it, with Kyle Filipowski. Because don't taunt a play. Don't do that. That's how fights break out between fans and players, and nobody wants that. So don't taunt an athlete who just lost. It's an extremely emotional experience for everybody, them included. Be better than that. All right, let's grab a break. We're going to come back on the other side. I have a couple more takeaways from the baseball weekend that I want to get to. We'll go through those, and then we have Otter Locks to close out a Monday edition of AFR presented by Relief Windows.
AFR.
AFR is brought to you by Pluckers, Nicholson, and Bluebonnet. Dine in or carry out 28 flavors of award-winning jumbo chicken wings, ice-cold draft beer, full-service bar, sports on TV. My goodness, there's something going on at Pluckers every night of the week. What more could you possibly want? How about sandwiches? Well, they've got those. What about salads? Pluckers actually has really underrated salads. Giant, gorgeous, fresh salads. You can actually eat healthy at Pluckers. Or you could just binge. Award-winning jumbo chicken wings tossed in your favorite sauce. You want to create your own menu item? Do it. They encourage the creativity. Great sides as well, like the cheese fries, the El Guapo dip, maybe the homemade blue cheese potato chips, holy macaroni, fried pickles. They got it all at Pluckers. Nicholson, just south of campus. Bluebonnet, right in front of the Mall of Louisiana. The best place to watch the game, which game? Any game, is at Pluckers, because you can eat wings, drink beer, and watch sports on TV. Remember, at Pluckers, if you don't like our wings, we'll give you the bird.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared towards seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps are held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
At Relief Windows, we're more than windows. We're windows, doors, hardy plank, and vinyl siding. But our #1 product.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows, windows, doors, siding. Oh yeah, they also do interior shutters.
Quick reminder about Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry, lmfj.com. lmfj.com for Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. They're the best. If you are, gentlemen, thinking about popping the question and you're thinking about where am I going to go buy that diamond, I want you to consider this. There are places that will sell you man-made lab diamonds, but what are you buying? It's according to its makeup and characteristics, sure, diamond. But is it going to hold its value? Like, is that the way you want to say, I love you, I want to spend the rest of my life with you? Go to Lee Michaels. Go to Lee Michaels. Walk in the door. Experience the thing I talk about all the time, which is the Lee Michaels experience. It's Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry with 10 locations. Baton Rouge, 2 locations in Baton Rouge. New Orleans, Lafayette, Shreveport, Mississippi, Texas as well. 10 locations across 3 states. It's Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. Thrill her, gentlemen. Thrill her with a gift in the red box from Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry.
All right, back here on AFR, Monday edition, presented by Relief Windows. Musso filling in for Moscona. I'll be in for Scone again tomorrow as well. He'll be back here in the chair on Wednesday for Wednesday's show. We're looking forward to that. Otter Lock still to come. Before we get there, though, I did want to give a couple more takeaways that I had from the LSU baseball weekend. So the Tigers win 3 out of 4 games, beat Northern Illinois 10-2 on Thursday, dropped the 5-2 decision to Stony Brook on Friday, and then beat Northern Illinois 5-2 Saturday and capped off with an 18-10 victory over Stony Brook on Sunday. And everything coming out of that, a lot of people want to talk about Thatcher Herd, which we've done today. A lot of people want to talk about the offense, which we've done today. The standouts that I have are kind of separate from that in a sense. We'll start with the one that is kind of tied to the offense, and it's because it's why it stood out so much. And that's Paxton Cling. On a weekend where LSU struggled with consistency offensively, where you won a baseball game with 3 hits, which is wild. I mean, it doesn't happen very often. So, and then the very next day, you pound out 17 hits. It's a crazy game. But on a weekend where, you're not clicking to where the head coach wants you to even be clicking offensively and is being very vocal about that in his post game. When all that negative energy surrounding your lineup, your offense, Paxton Kling stood out big time. And it was awesome to see. Paxton Kling in 4 games hit .666 this weekend with a homer, 3 RBI, and he drew 6 walks. He was all over the base paths and did it at the top of the order, did it towards the bottom of the order one day. It didn't matter. He was just seeing it really well, and now he's up to hitting .400 second on your team. And that's massive. Paxton Kling is going to be such a big part of this team and of this offense finding its footing. So to see him do that was, I couldn't help but notice it, right? You couldn't miss it. And going forward now to watch him build off of that is huge because he was one of the guys you had circled coming into this season as, okay, you saw it in flashes last year. Can he take the next step? And, man, when you watched him in the fall, you watched him in the springs, the at-bats they just looked better. He looked more comfortable. And I think you saw that this weekend when everyone else around him is struggling, he hauls off and hits .666. So that was massive. And massive takeaway for me. Wanted to mention it. The other thing that really, really stood out for the second week in a row was Stephen Milam. But this time it was in the field. We got our first look at him at shortstop, like in a starting role. That was on Saturday. And then you saw him back in the infield at second base, and he moved over to shortstop in a late replacement. And that kid can play shortstop. There's no doubt. In that little small sample size this weekend that you saw of him, you saw him make the routine play. You saw that he had plenty of arm for the position. And you saw him range left and right and make plays. You saw him turn a couple double plays. He was awesome in the field at shortstop and at second base. How about the game on Sunday? The leaping catch he makes on the line drive at second base. He was really, really good. And the immediate thing everybody wants to know is, okay, can he be your shortstop and supplant Michael Braswell? And here's what I'll say. Not yet. Because while he looked great in the field, and opening weekend he looked great offensively, he didn't really do anything to separate himself offensively this past weekend. They all kind of struggled a little bit, except for Paxton Kling. They all kind of struggled a little bit. And then when him and Braswell were both in there on Sunday, they both had huge days. So, I mean, you can't really be like, he's this far and away better, because I think their weekends were actually pretty comparable offensively. And defensively, they both looked great. So why it's encouraging to me, and I will say this, Stephen Milam has to be in there for you, whether it's at second, whether it's at short, he's got to be in there right now. So you'll continue a platoon with Josh Pearson, and you'll have Pearson play some outfield, some second base, and whatnot. But Stephen Milam's got to be in the lineup right now because he's impacting the game in a lot of different ways. And now you're even seeing that defensively, and it's growing what you can do. So the good thing that I get to with that is where I'm saying, not yet. You can't say that yet. But you have a lot of options. Because, Josh Pearson's looked pretty good at second base, too. The footwork looked a lot better this weekend. He turned a couple double plays. He looked good. And he had a nice weekend offensively, especially Sunday. But drew a great walk on Saturday, 9-pitch walk, and then had an RBI single later in that game. So, I mean, he accounted. I mean, he was on base, and I believe that the walk he drew, the 9-pitch walk, was with the bases loaded, so it scored runs. That's an RBI. Then had an RBI single. So he had 2 of your 5 runs driven in and 1 of your 3 hits. He stood out that day. played good in the field. You have a lot of good options in the middle of that infield right now if you're LSU, and that's a really, really good place to be. And Stephen Milam showing you what he could do now at shortstop to go along with second base, that only strengthens his team. That was a question that we had. If Michael Braswell goes down, who can play shortstop? Stephen Milam answered that question this week. Coach, I can. And he was darn fun to watch there. He's been a blast to watch the first 2 weeks in general. So that was something big to see. The last thing I want to touch on here, and I'll do it quickly because we have to get to break and get to Otter and wrap things up. The back end of the bullpen with Justin Lohr, they're teaming up with Gavin Guidry. It's been a slow start for Justin Lohr, slower than I thought. I think many of us thought that we'd see. Xavier transfer, who was awesome at the back end of their bullpen, all Big East. They were a tournament team. He was a big part of that. The stuff has looked good. It just hasn't looked as crisp. And you're just going to need a few more clean innings from him at the back end of that bullpen, because having him and Guidry back there, you have a chance to own the 8th and 9th innings. And I think ultimately you will get to that, to that point with him. It's just taking a little bit of time, but the stuff has looked plenty good. You just need a little bit more consistency and a few more clean innings for Justin Lohr. If you want more on that conversation, Musso at the box, because that's going to be part of tomorrow's episode, or I should say part of Tuesday's show. We're going to take a little bit deeper dive, look at some of the outings. So get subscribed up there if you would on the YouTube channel and just on your podcast apps. We're going to go a little bit deeper into that Justin Lohr conversation and his start so far at the back end of LSU's bullpen. All right, we're going to grab a break, come back on the other side. We're going to wrap things up with Otter Locks. Otter 10-1-1 last week here on AFR for Otter Locks. See if we can keep it rolling. I sure hope so. That was a very fun week to follow along with. Otter Locks closes the show next.
AFR.
AFR is brought to you by the Watermark Hotel and the Renaissance Hotel, two beautiful hotel properties in Baton Rouge, the Watermark downtown, the Renaissance Southtown right there on Bluebonnet. And when it comes to hosting your event, both the Watermark and the Renaissance are perfect. The Watermark is a gorgeous, elegant spot in downtown Baton Rouge. That wedding reception, that smaller gathering, that meeting space, they can do it. They've kept so much of the history and tradition of that iconic building while modernizing it. The Gregory is a great restaurant inside of the Watermark as well. And then, of course, the Renaissance Hotel. Southtown, right there on Bluebonnet in Baton Rouge. It's more modern. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous hotel property at the Renaissance Hotel where they have meeting space that can accommodate up to 500 people, 7,000 square foot of meeting space, perfectly located right off of Bluebonnet and I-10. It's the Watermark and the Renaissance Hotels in Baton Rouge.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
Happy New Year from your friends at Front to Back Boat Service. And what better way to kick off your new year than by taking your boat to the next level? Get the boat of your dreams, and that's where Front to Back comes into play. You want that spot lock trolling motor that's going to keep you right there on the water where you need to be. How about some forward-facing sonar that actually shows you the fish before you even cast? Custom stereo jobs, all of it. Sherman family's been doing it for 38 years. Go to fronttobackboatservice.com.
The importance of doing this fortified program and offering it to people down here is, number one, the only real chance you're going to get to do this is when you put on a new roof or build new. And through companies like HUDCO, who's kind of leading the way in this thing, it's going to offer the customers a huge advantage in the insurance market and the price of their insurance.
You know, we're not looking to make a fortune off fortifying. We're trying to give you a better product than our competitor at the moment. I'm trying to do something that he can. I'm trying to give you something better. So a lot of these insurance jobs, you're getting a re-roof, you're only paying your deductible. Let's sit down and talk about the fortified and let's see what it does to your insurance premium. You're getting a steal.
Yeah.
You're getting a brand new roof and a fortified certificate for your deductible, essentially. And I think we're rocking and rolling.
There it is, the extra mile. on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
The best.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows, windows, doors, siding. Oh yeah, they also do interior shutters.
Right about Hudco Roofing and HudcoRoofing.com. Do business with someone you know. Hudco Roofing, HudcoRoofing.com. Hey, remember, if you own a commercial building, or if you have a building that has a flat or metal roof, and you have roof issues, call Hudco. I've mentioned it before, but Hudco has a silicone coating product. So it can be very expensive. I just, every time I pass by Industraplex in Baton Rouge, I look at all those buildings. They're like north, Tom Drive, north of Airline, north of Florida, all those industrial buildings with the flat roofs, metal roofs. It can be very expensive to replace those. That's why Hudco has this silicone coating product. It's roughly half the cost of a roof replacement, and it comes with a 20-year warranty. Like, what are you going to be doing in 20 years? Are you going to still own that building in 20 years? It's a great option. It's Hudco Roofing. Tell you every day, do business with someone you know. From commercial to residential, repairs and replacements, it's Hudco Roofing. Do business with someone you know. Hudco Roofing and HudcoRoofing.com.
All righty, back here, closing out a Monday edition of AFR presented by Relief Windows. We have one more box left to check, and that is cash some tickets with our guy Jimmy Ott. It's time for Otter Locks.
Otter Locks, presented by Lofton Staffing Services. At Lofton, we put people to work. Call us today at 924-0200 or go to lofton.jobs.
A 10-1-1 week last week on Otter Locks. Check my math there. Check my record if you wouldn't mind there, Otter. But how are you?
Doing great, man. How about you, Musso?
I'm doing fantastic. What, small slate, big slate? What are we thinking tonight?
Yeah, three Power 6 matchups tonight. 2 in the Big 12 and 1 in the ACC. The best bet for tonight is the 8 o'clock game on ESPN. It's a rematch of that 3 overtime game where TCU beat Baylor in Waco. Baylor, a little bit exhausted, had to go to Provo, come back home, play a 3 overtime game where they had to exhaust a lot of energy, too, coming from down 29-10 right out the chute against Houston. They get it all the way back to even. Missed the free throw on the N1 to win it, and they lose in overtime. I think it's a tough spot for Baylor, and I think TCU just a hair better. We'll go with TCU minus 2.5, and, of course, buy it to 2.
Right. All right, TCU minus 2. We buy the half a point.
And then that's about it, but I do have a money-line parlay, and this basically pays even money. Got to lay a little bit juice, probably a little bit more juice than it was earlier in the day, but I don't see any chance of Miami going to Chapel Hill and beating them. North Carolina. State is playing like a bubble team should right now. They're kind of playing pretty good. The weak team in the Big 12 goes to Manhattan tonight, and we'll take State on the money line. And then a couple of Southland games. Nicholls State is at home against Incarnate Word. They're 9.5-point favorites for lay the money line there. And McNeese State going to Lamar and Beaumont today, the short trip to Beaumont. We're going to take the Cowboys. And that 4-team money line parlay, McNeese State, Nicholls State, North Carolina, and Kansas State.
All right. McNeese State, North Carolina. You said Nicholls State, and who is the third one? Kansas State, correct?
Yes, Kansas State, North Carolina, and then the 2 Southland teams, McNeese State and State.
All right, and we got that locked up as well with TCU -2. Otter, where are you tomorrow?
We are at Dozy Place on Government Street in the heart of Mid-City.
Steak for lunch for Hanny and Ott, baby. Here we go.
A lot of really good plate lunches that aren't available on the dinner menu. So,
all right.
Yeah.
All right, y'all get over there to Doze, see the guys for live at lunch tomorrow at 11 to 1. Jimmy, we appreciate it. We'll do it again tomorrow, man.
All right, Musso. Good luck.
Absolutely. Same to you. That is Jimmy Ott. Otter Locks again. We'll give it to you here. TCU -2 at home against Baylor. That's our unranked team over the ranked team. You know how we feel about that here. And then the 4-team moneyline parlay: North Carolina, McNeese, Kansas State, and Nicholls State. 4-team moneyline parlay. Those are your Otter Locks. Great week for Otter last week. Great show here today. Talked a lot of baseball. Got some football in there. Thank you to Mike Triplett, Glen West, and David Dellucci. We'll be back tomorrow on AFR.
AFR.
There it is, the extra mile. On the border of expected and extraordinary. For those willing to go further. Like vans customized for work or play. With safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Yo, Jake here from my friends over at Community Steel Company located in Gonzales, Louisiana. The local place you can turn to for all of your metal building needs. Notice I said local, not Houston, not Dallas, not Atlanta, but right here in Gonzales. Visit them at their brand new state-of-the-art website at communitysteelco.com or pick up the phone and give them a call today to answer all of your questions on your metal buildings, roofing and sheet metal, and any other steel needs you or your business need at 225-647-2020.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.